Hello and welcome to the deepest dive from MinnMax. This is the best, most thorough discussion about Spider-Man Miles Morales on the internet. I'm Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. I'm joined by Ana Diaz.
Hey, what's up?
Not much, you know. Joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
What was that? Were you Instagramming the camera, Kyle?
I have an alert on my screen that says marinate the chicken that's floating over your head and will float over your head for the duration of the show because I don't want to forget to marinate the chicken. And I thought that was funny.
That's right, everybody. It's Thanksgiving week here for talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales. Also joined by Kyle Bossman. Thank you for being here, Kyle.
Hello. Hello, absolutely.
Formerly of Easy Allies, now Twitch superstar. Is that the best way to put it?
Mini star, they call me.
Okay, world-renowned mini star.
I'm called a micro star. Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking
micro influencer.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you the other day. I just can't stop. And I was thinking about, God, where did I see you recently? And was it the Gamescom opening night live?
Yeah.
Is that what that was? And you had the
I got to
pre-show.
do the pre-show for that.
And I was thinking to a very specific moment, and I was hoping you could kind of take us behind the scenes. The moment when you revealed the gamer car. The Ford concept gamer car thingy. There was my favorite moment in the world is you revealing that gamer car. And I don't know if you edited this or who edited it, but there's just an extra beat, just like half a second too long of a delay before the car cuts in. And it is the perfect timing for just the avalanche of self-awareness of I am aware I'm talking about a gamer car. Roll the frickin' clip.
I will say that's one of, I think that I often don't like to rewatch my own things.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's like a proud comedic acting moment for me is how much I was able to put into that expression. That was not my first take, I'll say.
Somewhere there's a hard drive filled with you setting up the concept of a gamer car.
Well, yeah, because actually, so Ben, that whole thing was live, but it was pre-recorded, as you said, it was edited. And so I couldn't be reading off of a page because it had to look live. So everything, all of the copy for that Ford ad, I had to just memorize and prattle off naturally.
That's so hard.
And then I had to do my little expression at the end.
Just to make it, I mean, is there a universe?
Well, hold on. Can you do it now in the same way that Shakespeare actors can just pull up a monologue at any moment?
Yeah, give us that gamer car look.
I think it was like this. It was check out the Fords, what Ford's got coming up.
That's it?
For the audio listeners, you need to check out the video version.
The tiniest little thing, yeah.
It is a work of art. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you found us on YouTube, thank you so much. We're going to spoil the hell out of the second half of Spider-Man Miles Morales, so heads up, warning, warning, warning. Also, Anna's going to move a cat around.
I'm sorry.
It's Spider-Man itself. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. You can unlock the podcast version of this discussion by supporting us on Patreon. Also, you get the podcast version of Anna's show Refreshed, early access to the MinnMax show. Watch later, Patreon exclusive podcast, MinnFax, a ton of bonuses, and you help support us along the way and support the Deepest Dive format. So we'd appreciate it if you went over to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Also, we need to note that 3 of the 4 of our codes for this game were provided by PlayStation. So thanks for PlayStation, and thanks for leaving Kyle Bossman in the dark, PlayStation. We appreciate it. Okay. Time to play Most Common Comment. Everybody here that submitted a comment did it over on Patreon. You support us at any tier. You can submit a comment for the Deepest Dive. We got a lot of comments about the second half of Spider-Man Miles Morales. Does anybody have a guess for the most common comment? Yes, Anna.
I have 2 guesses.
Ooh, breaking the rules.
One's really, I don't know if that's against the rules.
It's allowed.
But either cat suit or questions about the ending.
Questions about the ending.
Yeah.
Could you be more specific?
Well, I think that I went, after playing through the game, I went online, and apparently it was not clear what happened to Finn at the end.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting discussion. No, you're wrong on both fronts. In fact, I don't think a single person wrote in about the Spider-Man catsuit, which seems insane now. But they did in the first half. But okay, solid guesses. Any other guesses out there?
I was thinking predictions for the sequel.
Okay, just bold predictions. Incorrect. Kyle Hilliard, your last best shot here.
Demos, please, Kyle.
Okay. Oof. All right. I was going to say, are people kind of on Finn's side?
Ooh, I would have written in about that. But no, there was a lot of people that wrote in about how they didn't
wait,
like...
one more guess.
Yes.
The Spider-Man Doc Ock cameo at the end.
Oh, interesting. No, a lot of people wrote in saying they didn't like Finn's death, had a lot of problems with that overall. But by far the most common comment, and this is really a testament to Insomniac here, I think, it's people loving the postcard scavenger hunt at the end with like the messages from his dad. A lot of people wrote in talking about how powerful that was for them, which is impressive for a side quest to get the most common comment. Okay, what do y'all think about, let's focus on the gameplay, I guess, out of the gate here, but anything stand out? Back half, Kyle Bossman, what stood out to you for the back half of this game, gameplay-wise?
Okay, so I think we got 2 new Venom abilities. We got like the Venom Dash and the Super Mega Explosion.
Right.
I feel like that was both the second half, right?
Yeah, and I like the way they reveal that one too, where it's like in kind of the cutscenes, kind of the quick time event, but then you unlock it that way. It was a cool way to, activate that bonus one, the super ability there.
And then definitely, you were given many scenarios where you're just going to fight a lot of people at once.
Yeah.
Whether it's like the top of that really cool Art Deco building or just the basements and all these things. But by the end, they're just really throwing a lot of enemies at you. And it's just kind of fun to practice all your abilities.
Did you get sick of combat?
Mm-mm.
Oh, good.
No. I do always hate... Spider-Man 1 did the same kind of thing. There's enemies who are just like, you can't do that thing against me. You got to do one particular thing against me. And that's the sword people who have like also whips that can just throw you to the ground and they say, we hurt him. So yeah, obviously, like I think that's always cheap. Like, why is the sword person better than the fist person at dodging my attacks? But no, I didn't get sick of it at all. I was pretty wired by the end, actually.
Yeah, some of those underground labs I had a tough time with. It was definitely like the first time in the game, I think, going through, I was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit more challenging here just to take on this amount of people. Although I think I am starting to get better at stealth, spamming that R3, just figuring out when it's safe and unsafe and stuff. But let's see. Should we focus on Venom abilities here? Because we had the Krispy Kreme Lemur submit a comment, the Krispy Kreme themselves, asking, was anyone else disappointed with the progression of the Venom attacks? After a certain point, the only Venom attacks I used regularly were Venom Dash and Venom Smash. This wasn't helped by the fact that the Venom Dash ability introduced in the latter half of the game was functionally identical to the Venom Punch. Perhaps a second playthrough on a harder difficulty will force me to use a more varied combat strategy, but overall, I think the game could have done better to diversify the Venom attacks and give them more specific applications.
I liked the dash a lot, and there was an upgrade that you could use where it would like if you hit jump right when you finished the Venom attack, you would get like a bonus damage thing. But like I couldn't pull it off. Like it seemed so good, and it seems like the same sort of cadence of like when you're traveling through the city and you do the 2 triggers to zip and jump.
Right.
But like I don't know if it was that like ended up underwhelming me, but it makes mostly because I couldn't execute it consistently. It was weird.
Yeah, Kyle,
the only way I do it actually is mashing X.
Oh, is that?
I just mash X a lot to pull that off.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe I'll try that. What were you gonna say, Anna?
Oh, just
the same
that.
thing, because I could not get the timing right. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, just that. I found myself sticking to like the standard Venom attacks from the first part of the game because I think those were so integrated to into the tutorials that I felt more comfortable with them. And so then like when I finally saved up like the skill points or whatever to like purchase the more sophisticated ones and then the story introduces the other new ones, I was just sort of like, well, I sort of like know how to do these things, so if I can skate by on these, then I'm going to skate by on these. Yeah,
and in a game this short, it's like I'm not really going to be sick of hitting that square button and just doing like the huge lunge and just punching them to oblivion. Especially, it's so nice in this game that if you miss them, you lose the like Venom meter. Like it doesn't disappear if you miss that strike, which is very satisfying just to keep hitting that again and again until you actually land that sucker. Samir Mukhashin writes in saying, something that wasn't touched upon but I feel like is really neat is that the moves you learn from the challenges are moves from Peter's skill tree from the very first game. It's a very cool idea to have Peter make you do a challenge and then reward you with a skill that he learned himself. It's an interesting way of looking at it. Kyle Hilliard's
and they contextualize it with some dialogue too.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
When you finish a challenge, Peter's like, yeah, just like pull back on it. Like they kind of like add some physics to it that don't make sense. But then Miles is like, yeah, I never thought about that. I'll try that next time.
Right.
I kind of like that little bit of contextualization. That's nice.
For sure. You know, Peter Parker's just been doing this so many times. He's so sick of every spider ability he has. He's just thankful to pass it on to somebody. Stefan Zerilli submits a comment on Patreon saying, anyone else ever wonder how the Spider-Men adjust the force of their punches? I mean, the same guy that has the strength to hold a bridge together is also punching regular humans in the face and somehow not exploding their heads. Yes, I'm sure he toggles it way back when he fights, but every once in a while, especially with a new Spider-Man discovering new powers, don't you think he might slip up and legit kick a hole through somebody's chest cavity?
Boy, do I have the show for you.
I was about to say the same thing. Let's say it at the same time.
One Punch Man?
I was going to say My Hero Academia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Because that's literally the whole first season is like him figuring out how to use percentages of his strength so he doesn't injure himself.
Yeah.
But One Punch Man's very good too. That's another good
Yeah, well, because the whole plot of that is just like he can't control his punches. They're way too powerful. And that could be a problem with Spider-Man, but I guess not.
Do you think it's implied then that both Spider-Men are pulling every punch so they don't murder these people?
I hope so.
But then how does he do it with like the big fat enemies then? You know, the ones that take more damage? He's just like keeping that same punch amount? Could he dial it up depending on the weight of the combatant? It's all very unclear.
Well, he can do all that pendulum math in his head very quickly, which I think is covered in the first game. Like it's more than simply like swinging. Like he's apparently doing a lot of math in his head, but maybe that's the same deal. He's just like has this innate ability to measure his punches, I guess.
And that's why Miles is also super smart in this game, is like the Spider-Men are just constantly doing math in their head. So they're just like supercharged and they're brainiacs at every second.
Yeah.
It's possible.
You know, I was going to bring this up a little later, but talking about sort of like scaling back abilities and stuff like that, I really liked the moment in the game where you had to prove your ability to fin and leap from like building to building.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to, it was one of those moments where I was like, have I ever done this in a game where I have all these superpowers, I have all this strength, and it doesn't really limit you in terms of gameplay, you know?
Yeah.
Like you just walk forward and you press jump, but just the idea that of like, oh, even though I can like, you know, do all these crazy acrobatics and stuff, and me as the player has to like scale it back and pretend I don't for this sequence. I don't know. I really liked that whole part. I'm like making it more complicated than it ultimately was in my head, but I just like the idea of like, you can't use your powers right now, and that's going to affect gameplay directly, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. It's such a weird segment. I liked it too, even though conceptually I think it's the dumbest idea. Like, prove you can enter our gang, make this jump, and then you're in. It's like, whatever. And also, like, it really made me laugh when they're like, "Oh, you got to prove it to the gang," and he's like, "Where are they?" They're like, "Oh, they're watching from the windows. They're watching from the windows, all right." It's like, what? Like, I'm sure they didn't want to like animate them on the roof or something, but it's the weirdest idea. They're like have day jobs and they're just pressed against the glass watching you make the stupid jump from a crane. The hell's going on?
It's like the Arkham games. It's like everyone's inside. It's really cold. It's really dangerous. They're just, don't worry about it. There's not people in the streets. Don't think about it too much.
But I wonder if it would have been a mess, I think, but it could have been interesting if, you know, the game kind of has like two modes, and not two different engines, but two kind of like animation molds, I guess would be the best way to put it from an idiot's point of view, where like you're in the Miles Morales mode, where it's kind of like the slow walk, like, okay, I'm walking around the underground base, looking around, versus obviously running around as Spider-Man. And it would have been kind of interesting if they would have kept you in the Spider-Man like speed and, you know, adaptability mode for that section. So you really had to like do that awkwardly slow stroll you do on the street every once in a while, instead of like, you know, not being able to mess up. It would have kind of been a weird trailing mission or something where they have a meter like, oh, you're too much Spider-Man, man. Right now, cool it.
Would have been super fun. Did you see someone online shared they managed to get Miles, like non-Spider-Man Miles, into a combat scenario?
Oh, really?
Like, I don't know how they did it. They just like broke sequencing or something. And like he walks into this like group of guys and gets punched, and like it just broke the game's brain because he like literally flattens out into a pancake and just across the pavement. Just like, oh my god, you gotta have that Spider-Man suit on, or else you will just turn to liquid.
And then it was weird. Yeah, Rio ran over to him then, like, my god, my son, he's a liquid. Nick Mantagani wrote in about something kind of similar. He says, after beating the game, I went to replay the first Rhino mission so I could get the trophy for crashing through 15 different objects in the mall. After loading up the mission, I changed my mind and decided I'd tackle that during my New Game Plus playthrough instead, so I abandoned the mission through the pause menu. However, doing this drops you back into the post-game save state as regular Miles Morales, with the same street clothes and same moveset you have in segments where you just walk around just as Miles, with no Spidey powers. Fast traveling to other spots on the map also loads you there as regular Miles and lets you casually walk off tall buildings, but with no falling animation / fall damage. The only way I was able to to fix this was to again select a mission through the menu, but play it all the way through, which spawned me back as Spider-Man. That is weird, bizarre. And then he asked if anybody else had any weird bugs. Anybody else have any tech issues this time around?
The bugs. I had one small tech issue. Was one of the times when I switched to regular Miles, I was just like invisible. Besides, weird. My jacket. So I was like walking around with no character model. And then another thing that I saw was this was a person intentionally trying to mess with the game. They became like a lamp, and they were like spider webbing across the city.
Yeah.
As a street lamp.
It's funny that has become such a dominating thing now, as everybody just sharing the weird videos of themselves becoming different objects. I'd love to know what it is. It's just something with the game code where it's just every object stored in the game is just an asset that randomly swaps out. It's so bizarre. I had a weird thing, and I think some people in the MinnMax Discord mentioned this as well, but I had a weird thing where once I finished the game and it was doing just kind of like post-game stuff, the game on PlayStation 5 really started chugging. Like it was when I went and did like the little Spider-Man cat mission, like around that area, it was just a mess. And even then I would get farther away and it's still just chugging, just crazy frame drops everywhere. And I know that they had a recent patch. I haven't gone back to check it out, but anybody else have crazy performance issues?
No, it's pretty lucky.
That's so weird. Yeah, especially on the PlayStation 5. It's a weird deal. Yadarista says the technical issues started to pop up for me in the second half of the game. The Kingpin voiceover on the laptop didn't play and didn't have subtitles, so I just stared silent and confused into his angry face. Visiting Feast as a floating Miles head also didn't help matters. Oh boy. Feast on this. That's bizarre.
You know what? I did have some dialogue that didn't load.
Oh yeah?
For the cat mission. Yeah, because the guy's like the bodega guy like calls you. But all I heard was Miles react to him like, ha, that guy's so silly. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And so I just went there and stole his cat. Like, I didn't really know what the setup for that was, but I just took his cat away from him, I guess.
Yeah, you get the idea. Just get the cat. You'll be set. BeatenDownBrian says, hey, in the last episode, you mentioned how you couldn't really fail while swinging. I'm not 100% sure if it's a bug or a feature, but while swinging through the city, I was doing the heel grab trick between a narrow gap when all of a sudden my foot caught a fire escape, which sent me plummeting to the ground, landing right on my tushy. It caught me off guard, but it was funny as heck. Thank you, BeatenDownBrian.
I think if you're mid-trick, I think you can collapse on the ground.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Could be wrong.
Yeah, you can fail tricks. It's really cool.
Yeah.
They're really annoying. Like, you'll just be running along the side of a building, and then they'll just stop you dead in your tracks. That happened to me a couple of times. You gotta watch out for them.
Yeah. Hey, Chris Carl here submits a comment on Patreon saying, I loved this game, but I need to get specific about something that I hated. The Roxxon Underground Labs. This is a very specific complaint. More specifically, the act of getting into them. For those that don't know, you enter the lab through a Roxxon gas/mechanic shop garage door. There are 2 garage doors to choose from at each location, and the entrance is behind one of them. If you choose the wrong door, Spidey says, guess I should have chose the other door, which you do and proceed to go right on in. That's it. That's all that happens. Did they think this was a puzzle? If so, how is there no consequence for choosing the wrong door? This game loves throwing bad guys at you. Why not throw one at you for choosing the wrong door? They could have made me chase a pigeon for all I care. At least it would have been something. Instead, it's a giant inconvenience that amounts to absolutely nothing but wasted time. Did I just choose correctly every time? I didn't even notice this.
They must have. I think it's kind of fun. It makes you feel like you're discovering something, though.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah, just it's a little bit like that. Just to bring up Costume Quest again for this deepest dive of like, okay, you don't know which one you're gonna get. It could be either way. Here we go.
Yeah, The entrances confuse me though, because like going back into them, because I missed a cache in one of the underground labs, and so I wanted to like get all the caches. And then it turns out that to get back in, once you've completed it, you need to go on the roof of the garage, and there's like a glowing light, and then you can re-enter the mission.
Oh, interesting.
I like went back like before the end boss. I was like, I want this before I do the last boss, but it wasn't triggering the L1, L2. So I was like, whatever. Beat the game. Went back again, still wasn't giving me the prompt. And I was like, how the heck do I get in here? It turns out that there's like a point, like a spawn point. That
Just the weird glowy thing. Yeah, I was curious how they do that.
Yeah.
I liked the conversations with Danica, although it felt like there was a lot of lore going on there as I was trying to fight off all these underground bases. I was like, I'm losing some of what she's saying here. But like, I liked the little beat where Miles is like asking her about who composes the intro to her podcast and if she'd ever like contract out with them. It's very sweet. And then also like that weird thing where she's like kind of asking him on a date. Like, we could just go to a cafe. And he has that one line where he's like, I'm picturing sitting in a cafe with a mask on and it's weird. And she's like, but it's cool, right? Like still trying to go on a date with Miles, which he's a taken man at this point. He's flirted with Haley twice. So he is locked down, baby.
He really knows who he is now, I guess, right?
That's a good question. Is it? Oh, yeah, she was there at the end?
It's very Spider-Man 2 in the train. Like, just a small group of people that are like, he's just a kid, you know?
Right. But I was wondering if she knew about it even before then. Maybe, she's just a perceptive person, but I was struck by... Miles had been talking to her in sign language, and then when Spider-Man shows up, like, she does not hesitate. She runs right up to Spider-Man and starts talking in sign language. It's like, that's a big assumption that Spider-Man understands sign language, unless she already knows exactly what's going on here. But I don't know. I don't know if they were...
She seems smart.
She seems smart. Let's see. Okay, in the underground thing, the underground bases, there was the weirdest moment in this game, and I'm stunned that nobody wrote in about it. Maybe I'm insane, but... What the hell was up with that weird mannequin moment?
That was lit. I loved that. I think that was my favorite part of the game.
It was so silly.
How the mannequins have moved.
Yes, it's like coming from a different game. It's like you run by those mannequins that come back, they moved, and then a stupid underground person jumps out from inside a mannequin like it's a cocoon.
The funniest part was when I walked past them on the way in, I'm like, those look kind of weird. I'm not like, I noticed them. They were noticeable.
Yeah, and they weren't physics objects either. You couldn't move them or like, because I think I tried to punch them because I was like, well, surely I can punch these things. And
right.
Nope.
It just feels like somebody in Insomniac was just like, boy, that'd be silly if there was an underground person that popped out of one of these mannequins. I can't believe they did it. Like, it's just the most absurd thing. Like,
why not?
I guess. I just
like weird, memorable moments. Like, I mean, you did like 5 of those missions. That one's the one that stands out now,
I just wish they would have foreshadowed it. Like when you snuck into the underground base, if they just had like mannequin training, like how to sneak inside a mannequin, like the Trojan horse, just some amount of foreshadowing there. It's very
Yankee
odd.
Just talking about his fear of mannequins a lot, just like won't shut up about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the final boss for Speed Nonagon. Remy Bach, the nitpicky end of the spectrum here, says, has anyone brought up the suspension of disbelief required in terms of how Spidey isn't seen or heard by characters when he really should be? Like the scene in the first half of the game where Finn meets with the underground and you're perched on top of some boxes. You're right in what looks like Finn's peripheral vision. Surely movement would be noticed. Or him speaking to Genki all the time, sometimes in a fairly quiet room or right above patrolling enemies. How is he not being caught? Look, man,
when they're going
that's
under
just for us.
Yeah, that's just for us. But it is very much that Metal Gear problem of like, yeah, with the codec, is Snake just like talking out loud in all these situations? I'm always confused about that. You think he'd just be given away immediately, so you got to let it go. But also I was struck too in this game how all like NPCs and just the bad guys, everybody refers to Miles as Spider-Man as like a kid. They're like, it's that kid Spider-Man, the little one, the kid. It's like, how do they have any idea what his age is? Like his voice, it's not exactly prepubescent. Like it's such a weird idea that everyone's like, the kid Spider-Man. He's like, I don't know, 5'10". How tall is Miles? I don't know.
Also, Peter Parker is not like super old either. Like there isn't a huge contrast in age.
Right, exactly. Yeah, night and day between those two. Let's see. Should we get to the story stuff here?
Yeah.
Great. Kyle, that's the enthusiasm I'm looking for. We got... nobody wrote in about it, but I like that scene where Miles is talking to Finn in that cafe, and really just reaming him with guilt about like, you're a good friend, Miles. Thank you so much. And Miles is like, oh, God, trying to get the inside scoop on how to learn more about this. And he had that confusing explanation about how he learned who Finn was by breaking in, because I'm trying to remember what the reasoning was for him getting into her secret lab to find out that she was the Tinkerer.
It was... Yeah, what was it? He was like looking for something. She didn't seem too perturbed by it. She didn't seem offended that he had broken in.
I think it was something about maybe there was a break-in and he was like following up on it. Yeah, but it was just that thing of like, how much did you learn here?
I mean, this is definitely the point for me where I was like, and maybe that's by design with Prowler sort of influencing him a little bit, but like I was like totally on Finn's side for most of the game of just like, yeah, let's go after this corporation. I'm not sure I mean, I know you're physically trying to protect lives by preventing an explosion, Spider-Man, but like, and plus like he totally lied to her. Like I was like on Finn's team. I mean, honestly,
especially when they got caught. It's like, yeah, Spider-Man, this is completely on you and you following Aaron's advice in this bizarre situation. Yeah, even though Finn kind of lost me towards the end about her being a little bit too dead set on blowing up this plaza. Like, I just wish they had a different name for it. Like, we have to blow up the Roxxon, I don't know, data network or something like that. But every time calling it the plaza, it just seems so artificial and like, I don't know, cool it. Just don't blow up this fountain and their headquarters. It should be fine.
Yeah. Which I guess that's, Miles was trying to, would have been happy to push her in a different direction. But I don't know. I feel like and maybe that was on purpose. Like they just seemed immovable, both of them, even though I totally sympathize with Finn, like in a big way.
But one of the conversations that I wanted to see, but that we didn't, was just Miles being like, hey, I blew up 3 of the reactors already. Are you happy? You know what I mean? Like, right. They are very much on the same side in my mind. Like, as I was playing this, I'm like, wait a second. Like, I get that on that, like, final action, they disagree on, like, how it should be handled. Like, he wants to leak the data, whereas she wants to, like, attack the plaza. But I'm sort of wondering, like, why didn't they talk about, like, where they agreed up to that point?
Yeah, that is a good point about bringing up the reactors. Yeah, I like the line. There's like a little bit of an explanation there where Miles makes the great point that, like, we don't need to blow anything up. Like, Simon Krieger's already screwed. We have all this evidence of him poisoning and getting everybody sick. And she's like, nobody will pay attention to that. Even if you release, there's like, it's a very kind of 2020 or this era sentiment, but just like, even if you release that news story, it's going to be a blip on everybody's radar, it's just immediately out of their minds and nothing's going to come of it. We need to blow this sucker up. It's very hell-bent on it. Kyle Bossman, what'd you think about Big Ol'?
They were almost...
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, they were almost tight. They were almost on the same page until Rhino instigated things. Until he was just like, yo, it's your fault that your brother is dead. And then that was really the point in which Finn said, like, okay, actually, I'm a bad guy now. And she stabbed that man in the face. Okay. Rhino's dead.
Hang on. Do you think so? Because I went back and watched it. There's some confusion there. Alex Brinegar in the Patreon, he says, Finn straight up killed Rhino, right? I understand it cuts away immediately to her and Miles scuffling, but I want to say his death was implied when she stabbed him in the chest. I also feel like this was a turning point for Finn's character when Miles realizes that she maybe has gone too far. I don't know. I think she was just starting to. I don't think it hit his heart. I mean, there's a lot of layers to Rhino there, don't you think?
He's like an onion.
Yeah, I don't know.
My imagination was like right through the nose. I'm like, if your post game analysis shows the chest, maybe, but to me it looked like she just shoved her sword straight through here.
Oh my God, I gotta check it out again. Yeah, maybe that could be the case. Also, I don't know a lot about Big Ol' Rhino, but I kind of that during that fight, which I had a surprisingly tough time with as well. Like, I hated being on fire; it was just driving me nuts. But I feel like there was a certain playfulness to Rhino. Of him just kind of like, I don't want to kill you. maybe I'm imagining this. He had a couple lines where he's just like kind of the thrill of the fight type of thing. And so his hard pivot from that to like, oh no, I'm just here not only to hurt you, but I'm just going to now monologue from the floor about watching your brother die and all this stuff. It seemed, is it weird to say? It seemed dark for a villain, or just a villain like Rhino, just to really lean into this Finn stranger. Like, why is he so mean to her?
Also, because he's newly hired by Roxxon, right? Because he was in jail.
Right.
So it's not like he knew Finn's brother. So like, why would he have any skin in this game? He's just hired muscle, right?
It was just, it's what Krieger the story really needed.
Caught him up with a good PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, that's true. James Smith writes in and says, I feel like I might be alone in this opinion, but on the off chance I'm not, did anyone else find it odd and uncharacteristic of anyone that Finn totally turned on Miles immediately just because he stopped her from killing the guy who said a couple of mean things to her, Rhino, and didn't actually do anything bad to her personally to give her any kind of deeper hatred for him? Harrison Holt McHale comments on that comment, and he says, like, for me, the back half of the game reeks of a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. That it's kind of missing some beats for these turns, which, yeah, I don't know. They certainly went into this game knowing that they wanted to have a scaled down version, so I'm curious how many storylines were on the cutting room floor, but it is a pretty abrupt turn there. And to hinge it entirely just on Rhino was more of a dick than was reasonable in that situation. Or maybe he was just that insulted that he was defeated in that fight.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't hit me too hard. I mean, but maybe it should have more. I don't know. I guess I was sympathizing with Finn too much, where I was like, yeah, he's insulting your dead brother.
Gotta take this guy out.
That guy.
Yeah. Let's see. Kyle Boston, I was going to ask you earlier about Krieger. What do you think about Simon Krieger as a character here?
That's a weak character.
Yeah.
There's no take. There's no real. There's no special take on an evil CEO. There's no real. I don't know. What's your perspective on this? He's soft.
Yeah. Well, it's like every villain thinks that they're the hero in their own story, and it really came through with Krieger. No, I'm totally with you. Like, especially that scene where they have him all locked up, and he's talking about Rick, and he's like, hey, he's talking to Finn. He goes, at least I still got a pulse, babe. And then he's talking about like the bioelectrical stuff in Miles's body. And there's this scene where he just goes, smells like money to me. And it's like, Jesus Christ, dial it down, comic book villains, for the love of God.
That's Troy Baker, right?
Oh boy, was it Troy Baker. That is him hammering it up in a big way. And like, he had a couple lines that he kept repeating that made me laugh, where he goes like, here's the deal. He said like, here's the deal so many times throughout this game. And his performance is very into like the whispery stuff. I was fascinated by how hard Troy Baker was swinging for that character when the role itself, like, there's not much you can really do here, but he's trying. You gotta give it to him.
Listen to the MP3s in the cache rooms so like in each base if you find the room with the cache, there's also an MP3 with like various Krieger audio. And like at first I'm like, oh, we're gonna get some like juicy lore here. But one was just like him being like, hey, are you excited for new Roxxon swag? And I'm like, what is going on here? I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, I'm trying to have fun with the whole Zuckerberg style role and all that stuff for him. But yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Man, if it was more Zuckerberg, I would buy him as a villain, actually.
Like he was just
he was more flat. If he was just less human, more Zuckerberg-y, I would actually really like that take. Just more
uncomfortable in his skin type of stuff.
Like Zuckerberg already looks like a computer-generated video game character.
Have you guys ever seen that first 60 Minutes interview with Zuckerberg?
No.
If you want to just vomit in your mouth from how uncomfortable it is, because it's my worst nightmare. Somebody who has a lot of social anxiety, but you just see him, as the head of Facebook in this big profile in 60 Minutes, and he just cannot handle this interview. Like he is just blushing, his face is red, is just a mess. He's chugging water. It's just so uncomfortable to see somebody that powerful be so uncomfortable when put in the spotlight like that. And then they interviewed him, years later when he was a slightly more comfortable position. It was just weird to have that juxtaposition of they cut back and forth all the time to show his old self just melting down on camera. It's a good time. Oh, I was a little annoyed in this section. It's a very sitcom-y thing, right? Of just Miles just has to convey to Finn that, hey, the reactor has been changed. Simon Krieger has upped it, so now it's going to destroy all of Harlem. For the love of God, don't blow this up. But he just can't get it across. He's just a lot of like, but the reactor, Finn, but the reactor. It's like, just say it. You can say it so much tighter than you are right now. Please get that point across. But, you know, it's a game.
He's a scientist. No, he's not a writer, man.
I understand. You know? I appreciated him like trying to call her and he got like the voicemail. Like he was at least trying to get through to her in some way. I think one of my favorite sequences of the game was when you were Spider-Man chasing Finn and she's going through the streets of New York and he's like, you know, why are you creating giant death wheels on me? But him trying to like reason with Finn, having that interaction of the story, caring about the character you're chasing through the city. I think that was probably the highlight of the game for me.
Yeah, the sort of wheels, I guess you could call them like plasma wheels, like coming down the side of the building that you had to jump over. Like I was like, this is really cool. And it's an ongoing thing with Spider-Man that I was raising my eyebrow in the last game too, with Black Cat in particular, where I'm like, how are these people keeping up with Spider-Man? Like, how is she as strong as Finn? Is Finn like, is Miles not that strong? He just can swing really well? Or like, does she have like power boosted fists? Or like, I'm always confused of like, I mean, Miles has superpowers, right? Like he,
yeah,
right?
I mean, he can hold the bridge together, Kyle. You saw it.
Yeah, but Finn can totally take a punch from him, like no problem, and can move as quickly as him and is as acrobatic as him. And I'm always kind of like,
I think it just comes down to like that.
Is that just video game license? I just need to let that go, or
I mean, you got to let it go, but it's just programmable matter. When she's got this funky tech, you know, you could reason with it like, okay, every punch she takes, it's like cushioning her face and counteracting it in just the right way, or some nonsense if they really want to overthink it. But you're not alone. Faraz Rizvi on the Patreon asked, did anyone in the panel have trouble taking the power levels of the Tinkerer seriously? This was made so much worse after last week's episode where the panel talked about these kids coming up with world-altering tech that stayed in my head the rest of the game, and every time I saw the Tinkerer come up with new things, I wanted to shout, come on, that's not possible! I mean, by the end of the game, she has created laser swords, programmable matter, and can fly. The Tinkerer has better tech than Iron Man. Yeah, she's good. She really paid attention in science class.
It's a Marvel universe. Like, there are geniuses who are like not comparable to the geniuses that we have in real life. Right. But I'm also asking myself, like, okay, if we're asking this for Tinkerer, why aren't we asking ourselves this for like Rhino? You know, like he has superpowers. Like, does Rhino technically have superpowers because he's really big? Like, I think, you know,
just trapped in that suit. It is, yes. I mean, you could go down this rabbit hole endlessly if you really wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, with Rhino, it's kind of like he doesn't have a backstory within that game. So I can kind of imagine that he was involved in some explosion or something, but it seems like Miles and Finn kind of grew up together. But like, honestly, it doesn't take away from the game. Mostly it's just kind of that like, sort of like, oh, that's weird. I'm having fun punching her though. You know? Getting punched by her.
We'll get to that.
One thing I will say that I feel like sold that for me was that the fact that there is this theme of like him sort of playing catch up to her and her sort of like being just like a little bit better at things. And, you know, like, even though he has superpowers, you know, like, you still see that dynamic in their fights, and then he, like, finally overcomes her at the end. But, like, I think that sort of power dynamic actually made, like, the final boss fight really intriguing, because I was asking myself, like, is Miles holding back? Because, like, it's his friend, you know? Like, he doesn't want to kill her. He's going to do anything in his power to avoid that. So, like, there's also that.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I actually liked that particular boss fight in that you can pop her up and combo her. You know what I mean? You can't do that with a lot of... She's more susceptible to your regular attacks than a regular boss is. And so they are more on the same level. You know, I actually liked that some regular tricks worked on this final boss fight. And yeah, it does kind of imply that they're of similar power levels.
Yeah. Joshua Turner submits a comment, says, if you would have told me 2 years ago that the Spider-Man and Tinkerer fight would be better than the Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus fight, I wouldn't have believed you. But it was extremely high energy and almost felt like a Dragon Ball Z fight with the way they're throwing each other around. Yeah, I thought that fight looked awesome and was a really solid boss fight.
Do you know what vibes I really got was like Star Wars, like the first room that you're in.
Right.
Like I really felt that. I was like, ooh, like this is so cool. The red lighting and just like the sort of grand hall that you're in. And then, like it decays over time.
Yeah, we'll get to it later, but there's definitely some Star Wars stuff that people were drawing comparisons to. Ben Ritchie submits a comment saying, did anyone else notice in the final battle that if you get knocked outside or tried to swing out of the building, a short cutscene automatically plays of Finn grappling you back inside? I thought it was a really neat design choice that avoided the need of an invisible wall, as well as provided context on why you have to stay inside the building. That's very good.
Yeah, I like that too. What she says, like, you're not getting away from me or something like that.
Yeah,
It's cool. I like it. Yeah.
It's really smart.
Because the hero would just try to go defuse it. The hero doesn't want to beat up his friend first and foremost. But yeah, I love that they did that for you.
Yeah. Biscuit has a problem. He says, did anyone else have a problem with the camera during the first phase of the final fight with Finn? The camera wouldn't follow me when I hit her up in the air, and it'd be out of frame hitting her. It made the fight a little bit harder for me. I guess I didn't notice that too much.
Same exact thing.
Ooh, there we go. Perfect. You just blasted through it, though. Did you have a tough time with the fight overall?
Just kept hitting square. I knew Spidey was punching him somewhere, so like I don't need to see it. I know it's happening.
Yeah. I'm sure Marvel fans are on top of this, but I didn't realize until looking into the old character, the Tinkerer, that like, his name is Phineas something. So like just her name being Finn, like if you're a Marvel fan, you would have known that immediately, which is probably telling that Insomniac didn't talk about her. I don't think she was featured in any of the trailers or anything. It's pretty, like, am I nuts? Did they mention her at all?
I mean, the Tinkerer certainly was, right? But Finn, I don't think so.
And I guess it's just because then they would have to give her name, and then people would immediately be like, okay, here you go. We solved your ending, Insomniac.
At the same time, we knew the second she said, I fixed your doorbell, exactly where she was.
Right, exactly. Could have just cut to the end boss right there.
Like it was not a thing that took a long time to put together for the audience at all,
Yeah. Yarrow submits a comment saying, I love the flashback sequence in the museum with Finn. The back and forth quips they made as looking through the exhibits. A couple of standouts were when playing the rocket launch minigame, Miles beats Finn and rubs it in while also calling the game a button masher. And then picking up the solar panel stickers, Miles says, ooh, shiny. Finn corrects him by calling them a portable solar panel. And Miles remarks, ooh, portable shiny. Had me laughing and brought a lot to the relationship. It's very Homer Simpson of him, but yeah. And then Sean Mills comes in with the juggernaut here, noticing the obvious. Why does every game this year feel the need to include a scene with its main character walking through a museum? We did it in The Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Animal Crossing. While it's becoming a trope, I did enjoy bumping into Doc Ock and Peter in the museum flashback.
That was cool. It
is weird that 2020 has so many big museum sequences, doesn't it?
Well, they get together at the beginning of the year and they decide that stuff.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they say museums are going to be having a tough time in 2020. Let's do what we can. Quick, get some sort of Shinra museum rolling in this thing. Something, please.
There's also a moment now like there where I'm kind of having similar experiences with, at the time you're listening to this, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity came out, where it's like, okay, I'm in the past. Technically, I'm Miles who doesn't know Peter and Doc Ock in the context of the game, but as me, Kyle Hilliard, playing the game, I'm really focused on them, and I'm sitting here staring at them.
Yeah.
And like, it's like I have a memory of them, but Miles doesn't, but I'm still like really digging into this and like seeing everything they have to say.
So you're saying the first time Peter met Miles then in 2018, Spider-Man should have been like, were you that creep at the museum that just stood next to me and my buddy talking for minutes?
It sounded like you were pressing square to initiate more dialogue. I don't know what was happening.
Walking in circles, uncomfortable. I forgot too. I think that Science Museum was awesome. I'd love to see how it looked in 2018. I don't remember that funky looking building being there like that, but it had a cool design.
I think it was brand new.
Is that right? Okay.
You could pick out things where I'm like, this is going to be a part of the game later. You could pick out because they were more elaborate and new. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. But I forgot that's such a silly detail in 2018 Spider-Man. I forgot that idea that like with Oscorp, it's not named after that because of Osborn. It was technically the O's because like, okay, so we have Osborn and Dr. Octavius, and we hung out all the time in college. Yeah. People called us the O's, so it's Oscorp technically. Very weird detail that I forgot about.
Nice.
funny reaction to the museum where he goes in and he's like, oh, the moment it closes down, like, of course, Finn moves in. Of course, the underground moved in. And my brain, this is just a real life thing. My brain was like, oh, it closed down due to COVID.
Right. It's that same instinct.
I didn't register. It's all dilapidated. I'm like, wait, no, like, this is not. Yeah. This is not real life.
It's so tough to get that out of your head. I still have it with every show, every movie I watch of just like this twinge of like, what are you doing? Get away, get away, get away. Like, you shouldn't be that close. It's just the worst.
Well, it's funny watching sitcoms that are like currently shooting because some have ignored it and it represents alternate universe 2020.
Yeah.
But then there's like a few that have like fully embraced it, like and like have it canonical real life, affecting the storylines of the show.
Grey's Anatomy. It's a very big deal.
I was thinking Superstore.
Very important too. Do you think? Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, this is a rabbit hole. I really want to see COVID-themed Curb episodes because I just think that the scheme of neuroses that it would unlock would just be incredible to watch and like perfect for the characters of that show.
That is true. And like, Seinfeld, close enough. He's written a lot about COVID in New York and stuff. So you get like hints of like that Larry David Seinfeld vibe there. Do you think COVID will exist in the Marvel Universe? Do you think at any point they'll make reference to it? They're just going to bypass it completely.
And so far it hasn't, right?
So far, yeah. I mean, I guess.
But also, like the Marvel Universe already skipped 2020, I think. I think they're in like 2025 right now,
So maybe it did exist, but just like compared to the blip or whatever they call that when everybody disappeared, they're like, who cares about I guess there's a disease for a while, whatever.
COVID happened during the blip, I think, at one point. Yeah. And actually, it wouldn't have spread as much during the blip.
Yeah.
With 50% of the world population, it just wouldn't have spread as well.
That was Thanos' plan.
It probably happened during the blip.
Right. Thanos is like, okay, if we cut the universe population in half, it won't spread between planets as easily. I'm the Dr. Fauci of this film. He kept screaming, which was confusing at the time. Anyways, Eric Merrill.
At the time, it did not make sense to me.
No, but now it's like locked in. You got it. Eric Merrill submits a comment on Patreon asking, if Genki is running the Spider-Man app, wouldn't it be pretty easy to go after him to get to Spider-Man? Dumb real world thinking, I know, but it seems like an oversight that he's so obviously directly involved with Spider-Man. It was
about that when he went to interview on the show. Yeah. I'm like, why? Like, he's so close to Miles. Like, that is such a liability.
Yeah,
it's like literally animated into the app. Yeah,
he'd be so easy to torture. Just be like, give me all your user data. Okay, now I know which one has the Spider-Man accounts. Very easy to track down here. Also, your game sucks. Yeah. I had a weird double take where I listened to that and enjoyed the Danica podcast and all that stuff. And then it was like a couple hours later, I was like, wait, how is he on that podcast? Like, did he explain who he was? What the hell was that? That podcast, by the way, the Danica podcast, it's weird, like how much I don't know. She has those little like beats at the end about like, hey, you're most productive between 2 and 3 p.m. Just like have those little like self-improvement tips at the end. I wonder how much it's like that's just coming from the studio at Insomniac, and just I wonder if somebody in particular or if it's just, I don't know, general wisdom. Because there's even a beat later where I think Prowler mentioned something about like nothing's more important than the work-life balance. It's like, I feel like Insomniac's slipping in a lot of like positive work discussion into this game, probably because they've been working a lot on this game.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a monologue. Christopher Reard wanted to write in more about Haley. He says the interaction with Haley where she ends up giving Spidey her scarf and then that becomes the new suit. Mwah, so good. I'm in love with this game. I love that suit. I'm a sucker for the good, subtle suits in this game, like the backpack suit. I love that stuff. Not with the one with the cat, the one that's like the college suit,
I did like that because I didn't mind like continuing to wear it because there's the weirdo ones that maybe you put on for a minute. You're like, oh, that's cool. But, I got to get back to the normal stuff in case a cutscene pops up. But like the scarf and the hat, I was like, well, this actually feels canonical. I don't mind wearing this one,
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess this was at the part in the story, I believe that side quest where it was revealed that the mysterious figure that was hurting Harlem was Fisk. And that they...
Yeah, I was surprised to see him.
It was about real estate.
Yeah, there we go. Importance of real estate. Yeah.
It was like, really about real estate the whole time,
some Lex Luthor tips.
Yeah, I don't know. It just... I guess they wanted to have Fisk in there. It's cool that they were in his old tower and stuff. Like that was more enthralling than seeing him talk to Miles again, I guess. But tying it all together here. On the Haley front, I'll have to double check it, but I think she might be in the subway in the very beginning. Like when you boot up the game and Miles is like checking his phone, I think she's walking by in the background. I think it's her at least. I'll have to double check that.
Like the start screen?
Yeah. I think Haley's in there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I assume those are all kind of randomized.
I think she might be the bad guy. I think they're teasing it. Yeah. She mentioned something about symbiote. I don't know. This is a sad state of affairs for the industry, but Haley stood out so much. I'm like, there has to be another deaf character in a video game. But I was really racking my brain, Googled deaf character video game, and it is just the Quiet Man, everybody. That's about all we got. Can anybody else think of any other deaf characters in any video games?
It took the graphical fidelity, hitting a point where they can do hands.
Yes.
But I mean, I feel like back in 360, maybe we could have even pulled that off, PS3 era.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
That's the thing is I think the finger animation was very natural. And so that is hard to do for sure.
Yeah.
It would have been bizarre to try and see them do that, like, Metal Gear Solid models on the PlayStation 1 just trying to do sign language would have been a mess. Sped.
It's very cool though. Yeah, there's a good interview with her. Like she did all the mocap for it and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, she really. Yeah. I liked her as a character. Sped has an interesting take here, saying in the first half of this game, the story makes a clear reference to the current day issues between minorities and law enforcement. You touched on this in the first video. I wanted to know if anyone else had any thoughts on the game's choice to use Roxxon's private military force serve as the problematic organization of the story rather than the actual police in any capacity. For me, it felt a little gross and exploitative to use the emotions connected to those issues in that way, but connect it to the military force.
Personally, I think it's a little, it's shying away from the hard conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're going to put Black Lives Matter in your game and you're not going to have any moral or ethical conundrums with the police themselves, like that's an active choice, right? Like, and you're erasing those stories. And I think it's like hard. And at the same time, okay, is Roxxon serving as a substitute for that? And are expecting the audience to just sort of fill that in? Because like, it's not, we talked about this in the last episode about how he's like, he would have shot me, right?
Yeah.
And Roxxon's sort of the stand-in there. And so like, I guess the sort of question is like, are they expecting folks to sort of put one and one together and sort of, draw that interpretation themselves? But like, I think there could have been really interesting narrative elements where Miles is thinking about like, okay, what did it mean for my dad to be a cop?
Right.
And like, what does that institution mean? And vis-a-vis, like, does that reflect on his personal character? And that's certainly, I think, it's been fair game for superhero franchises. I mean, Watchmen deals with those themes and thinks through those themes in a really thorough way. And that's a TV show and it's like exceptional writing. And like, I don't, I'm not going to be the person to be like, tell people what to write, but like, it's fair game, right?
Yeah, I think it's also just if they would have been writing this game and laying down the pre-production in the summer of 2020, I think this would look really different.
Yeah. Well, and it sort of ties back to that last conversation, like when were these elements put in,
But I think on that note, though, I think it's interesting that I think they're trying to touch on it in that way that, Sped mentions, where it is weird to connect it to like, the Roxxon forces, they're the baddies here. Because they give lines to the Roxxon forces that are very clear, like, why are you resisting as you're fighting? And they like cease and desist. And like they have these lines that you associate with the police, especially recently, and they just give them to those forces. And I think that's probably an easier thing to add in production later on, just additional bark from the Roxxon forces here. But yeah, it's tough. I would love to talk to Insomniac about how that timeline came together and when they added what. But Bossman, did you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, I did at the end feel like it was a little soft in a way, but I think their compromise was just removing the police as much as possible. They were not even present during the finale, and so like they're not good guys certainly in the story. They're never treated as such. I don't know if anyone even has any like actual lines of dialogue. But kind of as Anna started with, it's like you kind of have to say something. If you put up the Black Lives Matter mural and then do nothing with it, it does feel a little weird. But I'm with you guys. I think it was probably just something they added over the summer.
Yeah.
We'll forgive them this time, I guess.
Yeah, and it would have been like I think a pretty radically different story. It's not something they could pivot to, certainly, but I think it would have been a more interesting story, certainly.
Yeah. Well, and that's, like you would have to sort of shift everything. But I am, I'm curious to see. I was hoping with the sound tapes that we would get a little more story between Miles' dad and Aaron, because I think that that's a specific relationship where those dynamics could have been explored more, because you literally have a cop and a supervillain, and we don't really see, like sort of, I don't know, we don't get into the nitty gritty on. I don't feel like I got to know Aaron that well, to be honest, is I guess what I'm saying.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you here. Mitchell O'Brien wrote in saying, "Hey all, longtime lurker here, finally joining the Patreon. Thank you. Just wanted to comment on the mid-late campaign direction they went for Aaron Davis / the Prowler." You should have called yourself a Prowler, Mitchell. What are you doing here? But lurker works too. Anyways, as much as I love much more grounded mentor-mentee relationship. Oh, hang on. Okay, as much as I love the much more grounded mentor-mentee relationship with Aaron and Miles, I feel like it was a little too good. I never bought that they would actually go as far as to physically fight each other to that extent, especially over a disagreement like that. Felt more like the designers cramming in a boss fight for the sake of gameplay rather than story, because we all know a 5-minute cutscene of them talking out their differences wouldn't have made for a fun gameplay experience to the masses. So a little rush there. Yeah, I didn't mind that sequence because they have my favorite thing, which is something that Captain America Civil War has too, of just like the character honestly pleading. And I love there's that line in the fight, I think after the fight, where the Prowlers, he just looks at Spider-Man and he goes, "Man, please, like please don't do this. Just be on my side for this." I love that. Like it's, same way Iron Man does in Civil War, where he goes, "Give me a break." I love that line so much. But I hear what you're saying here, Mitchell, that it does feel a little bit rushed just for the sake of having that conflict there. Any other thoughts on the Aaron sequence here?
I played the sequence in the Purple Rain suit, and it was very nice.
That would be cool. Yeah, the timing is very confusing. But before I get to that, I liked there is something where Aaron says in that fight, like, "Oh, throwing yourself at enemies you can't beat. You know who else did that?" And then Miles has a line where he goes, "Don't say his name." And there's an interesting refrain about "don't say his name," where then Finn later on, when Miles is trying to bring up Rick, she says "Don't you dare say his name." And interesting again, if that's tying into Black Lives Matter in general, or if that's just a weird coincidence. I don't know exactly what their intention was there, but it's an interesting note. But
did you guys do all the side quests, like finding the sound bites and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I liked getting the little extra bits of story. I didn't really enjoy that sort of hunt mechanically of kind of looking around and trying to just kind of clicking R3 when it seemed, I don't know. It felt a little like it was the closest to busy work I kind of experienced in the game, because it forces you to swing somewhere, stop, and just kind of look around. And Spider-Man's all about moving quickly,
Right. So something different.
But it was worth it though. I liked the little snippets we got.
Yeah, Mike Lynch submits a comment saying, "I like the idea and the overall story of the beat side missions, but I don't think the mechanics behind the beats was executed too well." And then Joe Dean writes in and says, "I was enjoying the Prowler's missions of finding sounds until I got to that pigeon sound. I knew what the sound was, but I couldn't get close enough to those stupid pigeons. And just a little outside the mission area was a person feeding a bunch of pigeons with bread. So I thought maybe those were the pigeons I needed since they wouldn't fly away. Nope, just needed the camouflage, which I kept forgetting I could do. I got better about using it later on, but man, I hate those stupid pigeons." Yeah, that's very fair.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So to me, the song that he ended up making was very dumb. Did anyone else feel that when he's like finally playing his city music? It's just like, to me, like you worked really hard to make a dumb song is kind of how I felt.
I was dreading that the whole time of like listening to the ingredients. I'm like, boy, Insomniac has some talented sound designers. I would like to see what they can cobble together here. And then I heard it and I was like, yeah, that's about right. That's about the best you can do with those ingredients, maybe. But oh boy. Yeah, you know.
It's such a video, I don't know, like a comic book thing to me of like, he has his home, but he also found an abandoned underground place to like keep more of his stuff. Like that's like a thing that only is in comic books. Like I feel like Gotham City and Spider-Man's New York is just littered with like little houses that no one's managed to find or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just easy to infest. You know, we read the Court of Owls storyline. You can just take over any abandoned room. It's totally fine.
Full floors on buildings in that one.
Whatever. Grizzled Gaming submits a comment saying, I had a strange disconnect towards the end of the game. I just finished the Thicker Than Blood main mission where Miles and Uncle Aaron have their battle and falling out. Immediately after that, I wrapped up the sound samples, man, I hated those, and unlocked the Back to the Beginning side quest. I went straight to that and unlocked the Purple Rain suit, which Aaron gives Miles. It was very weird hearing Miles thanking his Uncle Aaron directly after the falling out. It's kind of like you, Anna. It's just confusing. And then he asked, did I play the game wrong? Probably. I did that.
Delete your save.
Yeah, you gotta go, man. I did that immediately right when it opened up, and so I was so up in my head about it because after you finish all those sound missions, Miles has a line where he just goes like, "Thanks, Uncle Aaron, for everything." And I was like, that is so nice and generic. Now I am convinced that the Prowler is gonna die. Because that sounds like a line that he could have delivered after his death, like reflecting on his life. But nope, They psyched me out, I guess. Did not happen. So in this part of the story, the storm finally hits. They keep talking about how bad that storm is. And they're like, oh, use R3 to find where the enemies are. But it's like, I can see everything fine. I was expecting...
Yeah, and he's like, I can't see a foot in front of me. And you're like, wait, I see the entire area right now.
I know. I'm sure that was like tweaked, you know, that they didn't want to make it too frustrating for players. Maybe it was dialed back later on, but it was weird. It's like, no, it's totally fine, Spider-Man. You can relax. It's like, I've never seen a storm like this. It's like, man, seems all right. I don't know.
Yeah. I've seen a few. I don't know.
Did we skip, does Rio know who Miles
so that did happen earlier. Yeah, so that was after Finn beats the crap out of him. Then he goes home and Rio has that great moment where she goes, what are you wearing? And she's like, oh my God.
That was the biggest surprise of the whole game for me.
Yeah.
Was her learning his identity. Like we talked last time about like whether she was going to live or not, and I think we were all pretty confident she was going to make it. I did not expect her to be like to know who Miles is. And be frankly okay with it, you know.
Yeah, she's like, well, stay safe. Have fun out there. It's kind of like it's just the nature of the universe. Like it made me laugh too that, you know, in the reveal in the cafe when Miles says that he knows that Finn was the Tinkerer, you think it should just be like, what? Like, how are you the Tinkerer? How is this possible? But it's like the Marvel universe. Everyone's like, oh, so you're that person? Oh, okay. Got it. Moving on. Like, there's never a moment. Oh, go ahead.
No, I feel like I felt this more in the second half than the first, where I'm like, why is Genki just not begging Miles to leave? Like, his uncle begs him to not do things, but like, why doesn't he ever get any bit of that from Genki? Because Genki's got to have some apprehensions about, like, I get that he's supposed to be like the supportive friend who's like got his back no matter what.
Yeah.
But like, dang, dude, like your friend like can die.
But don't you get, it's like he gets that much closer to the power. Like he's just a bored kid. Like, you know, he wants his friend to be on the life and death edge every single day. He gets a sick thrill out of it, man.
Yeah, he thrives on that.
Yeah, I don't trust Genki. But it made me laugh too, like when Finn realizes that Miles is Spider-Man. And I know that they're hostile at that point, but there's never a moment of just like, what? How? Like, how did you become a Spider-Man? What is happening here? But, you know, you don't want to slow things down. I get it. And then, let's see. Yes. So Rio finds out who that is. Then at the ending, there is kind of something that we talked about a little bit last week where Prowler does save them. And there's that beat where him and Rio interact. And it seems implied that Rio knows. I guess it's just assumed that everybody's in the know and she knows exactly who the Prowler is, right?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron knew, right?
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
so she knew then. Yeah. And that's why there was a wedge there. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Let's see. Oh, then getting to the final battle, I forgot to mention real quick, that weird line where Troy Baker at the start of the final battle goes, "Oh, Battle Royale, my favorite." I might have died a couple times, so I heard him say that a couple times, but it's fun. Clint Farley submits a comment on Patreon and says, "I was surprised they used one of the final moments of the game, Miles draining the reactor, as the opening of the reveal trailer."
Yeah, me too.
I think that's really cool. I love that, where it's just in plain sight, but you don't have any context, so it's not technically a spoiler.
Yeah,
I'm not even mad. Normally that would make me furious.
Yeah? Oh, good. Okay.
I was going to say, every time you did one of the smaller ones, the smaller generators, I was like, oh, this is when that little scene will kick off.
Right.
And it kept like not appearing. And I was like, oh, when's that going to happen? When's that suit going to get tore up?
Also, a couple people made reference to how Mass Effect 3, this entire ending is, like when he's like marching towards the reactor before he grabs it, that somebody said they expected Marauder shields to jump out, that classic Mass Effect 3 character. It definitely was. They had Metal Gear Solid 4 Microwave Hallway and and Mass Effect 3 march towards the ending there. It's very fun. Ian T. Clark says, "I rarely get emotional during video games, but I had to take off my glasses several times to wipe my eyes with a tissue. One of the moments that got me was when Finn realizes the explosion from the Nuform reactor is going to vaporize all of Harlem. She apologizes to Miles as they fall from the plaza rubble in each other's arms. Without hesitation, he says, 'It's okay,' right before they hit the ground."
Yeah.
Anybody get emotional here?
I thought it was very sweet. I don't know if I teared up necessarily, but I was like, I kind of had this thought. I was like, this is well done. Like this sort of the animation, the performance,
Yeah, I have a broken, cold heart, but it did get me when she said, "I'm sorry," like when they were coming down. Like that delivery was like, oh, okay, pretty good. Not tears flowing, but just a surge of emotion. Air Key says that he got emotional. The part that got me to actually cry was right after Finn's sacrifice, when Miles' mom screams for her son as he falls from the sky and crashes into the cement. Her pain and worry really got to me, as though she lost her son. Yeah, that was a great performance there for sure. Okay. The big Finn death. Mr. Bossman, what did you think about conceptually what they went for here?
I liked it. It was basically the only thing you could do to redeem her character at that point. So it's preceded by, she sees a flash of her brother dying, right?
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, damn, that's about to happen again. And so, yeah, it's cool that she's got this unique ability. No one else could have prevented the explosion happening on the city surface other than her. So it makes her role really important. And it was her decision, and she was comfortable with it, and she knew what was about to happen. And I thought that was good. That was unexpected. That was nobody last week when we were making our predictions thought Finn is the one to die. Or even that she would be the final boss. We're all like, it's got to be, Krieger turns into something. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, so actually, I like that it was her, that it was this intimate, that this entire story led up to that moment is appropriate. It was all plotted out very well, I would say, actually. And so, yeah, I got no problem with it. I think that the fall was really scary. Not even Spider-Man survives that fall, but he did. But yeah, visually I liked it a lot. It was just kind of an interesting way to handle all of that.
Question: does this make Finn the central hero of the story, like of the narrative? Like she's the one who's like growing and changing and taking like the definitive action at the end.
Huh. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, how much does Miles specifically change throughout the course of the story? I mean, you could say
he learned how to drink the coffee upside down.
That is a great point. I'm sorry, Anna, you're wrong. The coffee makes Miles the protagonist after all. But no, that's a great point. I think she has the most compelling arc for sure. I was surprised that they went for the death, just because it seems like, well, that's like a cool character to keep around for the future of the Insomniac Spider-Man series, of course. I think it's one of those cases though where like the specifics of how and why is this necessary? That's kind of what got me a little bit about, okay, so he has to explode and she can't just let him go, because then I guess he would fall, but he'll fall no matter what when she's vaporized. It's just that silly thing. It's it's very much the Dragon Ball Z, Goku holding on to Raditz and saying, all right, Piccolo, shoot through me. It's all just like, what? It really have to be right there? You couldn't dodge out of the way? But Kyle Healer, did you have thoughts on Finn's death?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty conclusive until Anna called into question. I guess the internet seems less convinced, right?
Yeah, I just saw like a couple articles on it. And so but I mean, in my mind, it was like very clear.
She seems super vaporized.
I mean, especially from the memories side quest after. I think people are just SEO mining.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it could be. I also wonder if Miles, I thought he might touch on it. I didn't really get a sense that this would be the case, maybe in the future, that he could like fully blame himself because he was trying to hold in an explosion and then he just had to let it out. Like he couldn't contain it anymore. Like, will he blame himself for Finn's death because he is the one that did the exploding, for lack of
you make a comment
terminology.
That's like, that says like, even though it was her fault, technically, right? I need to go look this up. I think he comments that like he sees it, like even though he is sad, but like he saw it as like her doing. That
she was the one that caused this. I mean, it is like, not exactly the next day, but it is a pretty abrupt change then to him just dancing around the neighborhood again, be like, hey, finger guns to people on the sidewalk, where it's like, hey man, your best friend just died.
My childhood friend's dead.
Yeah, I'm numb to this after that father's death.
4 weeks.
4 weeks? Okay.
I think they gave us 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, which seemed arbitrary, but now I understand it is. What is the amount of time for Miles to be dancing again? That does seem appropriate.
His first time dancing again. That makes sense. Patrick Polk says, between the mask, the voice modulation, and attitudes that ranged all the way from emo and sad to angry and breaking stuff, the Tinkerer really reminded me of Kylo Ren, especially in the second half of the game.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that, when they mapped out the story, it probably wasn't a direct influence, but it's fun. And Matt Thomas also says, between this game's ending and Rise of Skywalker, I think I'm done with the sacrificial villain trope, especially when part of the big effort of those stories was to save the main villain's humanity. It feels like a waste to go through all that effort for 3 minutes of decency, followed by an immediate death. I want to see the results of that effort. Finn and Miles actually being friends again and having that full conversation. Let's acknowledge the awkwardness. Let's see her deal with the consequences of her actions. I really like this game, and that final boss fight was amazing, but seeing the ending really give into that trope left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. I found myself asking the question, like, what is going to bring these characters closure? What's going to bring their stories full circle? Like, in the context of sort of, I guess, like, generational healing? Because, and I was thinking that was going to lead to Prowler sacrificing himself and sort of putting a punctuation on that relationship and being like, okay, like, I'm going to sort of atone for this generation's mistakes. And now you and Finn can go
totally
live your life with like a full relationship that like your father and I weren't able to have, And so it surprised me a lot.
Yeah.
That Finn died. Yeah.
Thinking about like, the stories they can tell in the future. It's like, okay, now we have Miles and more Prowler stories where it feels like, I think I got it. It wasn't, as in depth maybe as you were hoping or expecting for in this game, but like, I think I get that dynamic. Whereas I feel like the Finn and Miles relationship could have been more interesting if they do get into a relationship later on, or how that works. And it seems weird just to cut it all off. But Matt Robinson submits a comment. Here we go, full circle. I really like the fact that the game starts with the guy painting the mural telling Miles that the original Spidey is his Spider-Man, but ends with that same guy telling the reporters that Miles is our Spider-Man. So there we go. We expected the mural full circle, but not the guy specifically with that line of dialogue. So they got us after all. And then, yes, the drinking upside down beat when Peter comes back in. He says, gotta be me. He goes, yeah, you do. And then
I guess he was really on vacation. Genuinely.
Yeah, not a prank.
We didn't think that. That's the biggest twist of the game.
Yeah, even like one of the post-game calls from Peter, Miles asks him, like, did you have to suit up at all? And he said, no. Peter Parker says, I wasn't Spider-Man that entire time. And I was thinking, like, that's not possible. You know what I mean? Like, if if it was his story, like obviously every time Spider-Man goes on vacation, he's got to be Spider-Man, and so it's like how fun for him just to be a total side character this whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, all right, he should be relish. He should never stop talking about that window where he just got to have a relaxing vacation. Well, I know he was stressed out by the language and all that, but
and Miles is like, I lost my childhood best friend.
Yeah,
like,
everything blew up and all my friends died again. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
That was Europe.
Yeah.
I hope that baguette was really good, Peter Parker.
Can you, like, I think where he ended up going was like a fictional country that Silver Sable's from. Is that right? Is that what was going on there? I actually did not connect to whatever. Sorry?
Yes. So Israr submitted a comment to Patreon saying, what are your thoughts on the hints of what Peter's up to, such as being in Symkaria or looking for a new job and what it can mean for the next game? In Marvel lore, Symkaria is a close ally with Latveria, which is ruled by Doctor Doom, which would be a cool way to bring in the Fantastic Four. That would be cool, but just because the countries are allies seems like a little bit of a stretch. But
that feels more like fun Easter egg, you know, like the Wakanda embassy just being there. It doesn't really have a story purpose, but it's just fun, you know.
Yeah, but there are, you know, some teases of where they're going. Like he mentions that he's looking for a job, and Miles recommends teaching, and it seems like I think Peter has a reaction like no, and he's like actually. So maybe he'll be a professor in the next game. He has some line talking about like, hey, you know, now that we're both back in the city, I just want you to know I'm not going to be watching over your shoulders the entire time. There's a mention of Peter having a house, which people have connected to. It's probably Aunt May's house. So that would be in Queens. Yes. So that would be a new borough if they do stick in New York for the next Spider-Man.
Yeah, because you never went there.
Of course you would move into her house. Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, other things. I mean, Aaron said he's going to be out of prison in 2 years. So if that lines up for, if they want to keep this timeline for like if Spider-Man 2 comes out then 2022, that seems about right for a window there if they want to sync that sucker up. And
then should we talk about that? There's one major tease for
there is another. Yes. Walk us through it, Kyle. Paint the picture.
All right. Imagine you're in a healing chamber, like from Dragon Ball Z, after getting your butt kicked by the Ginyu Force.
Yep.
But there's like green stuff and Venom-y stuff. Dr. Connors was there, right? The lizard? Was he in Spider-Man 1?
This is what's confusing. So I think on the Kind of Funny spoiler cast, I think Tim Geddes brought it up. But it's so confusing that Dr. Connors is there, who's the lizard, but he's a human in the tease. But in Spider-Man 2018, at the Halloween party, there were several people dressed up as the lizard. So
that's not right. That's not right.
I think it's probably they're just like whatever.
I'm sorry, this is how you found out, Kyle. You seem really hurt by it.
No, I remember. I remember that they're going to retcon that costume.
They will.
They're absolutely going to retcon it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, they can change Peter's face. They can remove lizard costumes from a game.
Yeah, it's weird though. They actually made the old lizard costume. Now it just has Peter's old face on it. Like, oh, look at this scary mask I'm wearing. Seems soulless.
So I guess actually in the animated series, he gets to be lizard, and then like he gets to be cool again. For Doc Connors. Oh.
He goes
yeah. They still trust him sometimes from time to time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then sometimes he's like, I have urges. It's like, don't do it. It's like, I can't control my urges. And then he's like lizard again for one episode.
Yeah, I know.
But then he's a good guy again.
I know Norman Osborn is crazy, but isn't he like running for mayor and stuff? The idea that like he would hire the lizard to be his doctor still seems untenable. It's like, here, be around my son and this very fragile equipment that needs to be in order to keep him alive.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think.
I thought his career was over at the end.
I didn't remember exactly what happened there. Yeah.
I know, like, because the big tease, which for Spider-Man 1, is that like Harry, right? It's Norman is the father, Harry is the son, right? Harry's in a tank, and there seems to be some kind of symbiote Venom stuff happening in that tank. He's healing from something. That was the big tease. And now the tease is like it's taken it like one small step forward, where it's basically the same exact tease, but it's like, all right, let's get him out of there. Yeah, it's like, okay, so he's going to get out? Oh, I didn't assume that from the tease from Spider-Man 1. Okay.
It's very much that Marvel, I forget which movie it is, but yeah, that ending where it's just Thanos saying, well, I'll take care of this myself. It's like, Yeah, we assumed that. That's the big tease here. Yeah, it doesn't move.
Fine. I mean, it's cool. I like it's a nice confirmation of Spider-Man 2 is coming. I just wish there would have been a little more sort of story, something,
Yeah. Evan One Sonic says, I just want to say I didn't like the setup of the next Spider-Man game. In this game, I understand why they did it, but I understand why they did what they did, but why does every Spider-Man story need to have Venom in it? I get it, he's cool and all, but don't you get sick of him in every Spider-Man story at some point? We don't necessarily know it's Venom. It could just be symbiote and combining with Hobgoblin in a weird way, which, I don't know. Marvel fans in the comments, please let us know. Has there ever been like a goblin? Happened. It has happened.
Yeah, the red Carnage symbiote has taken over the Green Goblin, become the Red Goblin.
Okay, so that type of thing is...
Which is where I thought it was. I actually thought they were going with the red symbiote in that tank, but it looked black in this one. It looked like, yeah.
Okay,
but that's like saying, like, why does Joker got to be why is Joker so often in Batman stuff?
Right.
Venom rules. Like, why would you? Venom's so good.
Yeah, and it is a testament, I think, to the power of the storytelling in 2018 Spider-Man, where it's like, I was so sick of the Green Goblin storyline. I don't give a crap. And then by the end of that game, I was like, oh man, Green Goblin, this is gonna be sweet. Like the fact that game could make me excited about the Green Goblin again, that's amazing.
Did you all see that Venom is a playable character in Fortnite right now?
Very cool.
Yes.
It's the ultimate experience.
Here, I think.
Yeah.
Does he hold a gun?
I you know what? This would require me like going into Fortnite, getting or just Googling a video. I don't know to answer your question. I'm not sure.
I mean, Thor carries a gun when you play as Thor. I've played enough to have played as Thor. Yeah, and he uses his hammer. That's his axe to cut things down. And there is a special ability where you can throw the hammer, but I mean, otherwise you're just Thor with a gun. So
all right, why not? Nicholas Freitas.
The commenters are going to bring up Agent Venom too, so don't bother. We know about Agent Venom.
Okay, thank you. We're all deeply aware.
We know.
Intimately aware of Agent Venom.
All of us know about Agent Venom. Just don't bother.
We had a lot of comments as well about someone asking you to rank the spider suits this time around. I won't put you through that, though. I won't put you through that special layer of hell.
Wait, can I pick a favorite and defend my choice?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, I feel like we should all pick favorites. Right?
Okay. Okay. Before we get to suits, let's just mop this thing up real quick. On the Venom teaser thing, Nicholas Freitas says if you go to the window...
Hanson, are you talking about Miles' special abilities or the villain?
Who can tell? I'm so confused. I did enjoy it. There was on that kind of funny... But on that kind of funny spoiler cast, Brian Horton, the game's creative director, he definitely had like, I'm getting this question a lot, so just to make it clear... I don't know why Brian Michael Bendis called it Venom, but that's what we had to call it from the comics. Anyways, Nicholas Freitas submits a comment saying, if you go to the window of Miles's upstairs neighbor, you can find an action figure of the black suit Spider-Man, which is very strange as Insomniac was very explicit about not including any references to the black suit outside of the story. That's strange. I'd have to look up that Easter egg. And then also
I feel like that's an environmental artist, like just taking a liberty there.
Just going for it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I doubt that's intentional, right?
Right. I just hope when they finally reveal Venom in the game that it pops out of a mannequin. I feel like that'd be the coolest, most badass way to come out. Yadarista says, seeing all the Osborn space exhibits made me wonder if it was a hint towards Venom appearing in later games. Do you think that Osborn space stuff in the museum was trying to connect those dots for the future?
They certainly spent a lot of time.
We spent a lot of time learning about the ocean too.
Ooh. Okay, so Namor, where are you going
why
for?
Were we learning so much about this aquatic ocean base? You know, like why spend so much time on that? So like maybe that's just laying pipe.
There it is. Oh, suits. Anna,
swinging underwater.
Oh,
that's incredibly slow.
Oh, but just imagine the dual sense when swinging underwater. That's a unique feel. They can really go all out. But okay, suits, Anna. What do you got? Your favorite suit?
It's no surprise. The cat suit's my favorite.
Yep.
And here's why. I have a good reason other than it being like a unique suit that has a cat in it and that I like cats. and it is that there is a finisher where the cat paws at the enemy when you use your finisher. And so seeing that for the first time, like, it was just like so surprising. And it was, like towards the end game. It was after the main storyline.
Yeah.
And so I'm at a point where like the game's not going to surprise me in any way, I'm kind of just like hanging out. I'm just swinging around. And then, that happened and it was very fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I had no idea.
I like there's an NPC in the game too. I don't know if it's at any point they'll shout this, but there's just an NPC at some point that just yelled at me going, "Why do you keep changing your suit?"
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It's cute. It would be a confusing thing. I would just assume it's a different Spider-Man. It's amazing they know it's the same one, if apparently it's just spreading like wildfire here. Eric Reitz says, I really loved all the remaining suits in the game, especially the reprogrammable matter suit one. I thought it looked so cool with the glow of the suit, but then when it did a finishing move and it created 4 additional legs like the Infinity War Spidey, mwah, Eric says. A lot of people doing the chef's kiss.
I got to do more finishers, I guess.
Yeah.
Really, that thing. Yeah. So there's unique finishers per costumes?
For
That's
some of
really
these.
Cool.
Yeah.
Damn.
Favorite suit, the animated suit, the one from Spider-Verse, obviously. I was surprised that it didn't, during cutscenes, it doesn't animate on the twos like it does swinging around. I was looking forward to seeing what that looked like in story stuff. Also, only other suit gripe, I wish the classic suit was in the upper left. Like, I would always go back to that one. It's weird that they just bury it.
It's weird.
Yeah. Favorite suits, Kyle's?
I mean, the cat suit was like, I ended up staying late to like beat the game, staying up late. And it was like, my daughter was like, well, you have to beat it so that I can get the cat suit and play with the cat suit. And the second I unlocked it, she took it from me and took I showed her how to do photo mode, and she took like 1,000 pictures, and it was like the best thing in the world. And I agree with them. Like, and I got to go check out this finisher now. So like, it's the cat suit that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a whole other character. It's like Banjo-Kazooie or Jack and Daxter or something.
Kyle, quick suit ranking. You got anything off the top of the dome?
Well, just for number one for me is actually the Miles Morales 2099. That turned out to be my favorite. I really like the color scheme.
Okay,
the hood works well.
Which one is that again?
It's a nice one.
Okay, I gotta.
So that's like like a Spider-Man 2099. It's got like like a weird skull on his chest.
Right.
It's kind of like that, but it's got like reds and whites and blues on it. It's really nice.
Oh yeah. Ooh, that is funky. Okay. And any other runners up?
And the eyes are kind of misty.
Oh, sounds good.
What else did I like? No, I actually, so even just like beyond the cat, that costume is its own unique thing too. Like it's got its own legs and mask and everything too. I actually really like that costume all around.
Yeah.
Even without a cat on the backpack, it'd be a nice one.
Yeah, for sure. Gabe Brandolino says, in cutscenes when Miles takes off his mask, it's usually floppy. But if you switch into the cool Daft Punk looking Spider-Man 2020 outfit, Insomniac made sure the suit's helmet behaves like a helmet whenever he's taking it off, has it partially on or it's resting on something. It's really awesome seeing that level of detail put into optional costumes for cutscenes. Also, in reference to last week's episode, the lighting settings you were talking about are in the PlayStation 4 version. Like the spherical light thing.
Cool.
Which is very cool. Very impressive.
Can we talk about that costume for 1 second?
Please.
So the Daft Punk one.
Yeah.
On one of his sleeves, it's got the S that's like the one that you would write on like your middle school like binders and stuff.
Right.
It actually has that particular S.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never seen that look cool. Like, why would you put, I don't know, it's like, because he's just Miles. Like, Miles thought that S would be cool to put on his jacket. I forgot about that one. That one's one of my faves too. When I was doing the audio recording, I was wearing that one.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, we've all drawn that S 3,000 times. Kyle, does your kid know about that S? Not that.
Have you done a good job as a father in raising your child? Do they know the trick?
The secret of the S?
Gosh, I feel like I might have seen it like on a notebook or something. Maybe I'll have to.
You gotta snoop through her diary.
Show her and be like, "What is this to you? What is this to the new generation?"
This is applicable to Minnesota people only, but since we are MinnMax with 2 N's, there's this sculpture park in, I guess, central Minnesota called Franconia, and one of the sculptures is just a giant S like that. Like, it's like 3 stories tall, and it's just a giant S. And the artist statement is just like, I wanted to make like something childlike but surprising, like. And that's it. It's incredible.
That's perfect.
Highly recommend going to see it.
No, that's art. Roel submits a comment that's to the point, just says, great credits. Those were good credits. The cool little models in there.
Credits.
Also, my favorite thing, the alphabetical listing for everybody is such a classy move for a studio not to prioritize it. And I think, Valve does it alphabetical? Are they the only other ones?
Yeah. And then somebody's been doing it for a while. I remember what's their VR game that is really underrated where it's like a Lovecraftian.
No one Google it. Let's all try and think. The Insomniac VR
Brink
game.
of Despair or something. Genuinely very good. Go back and track it down. It's kind of an underrated VR game. It was an early VR game, but like that was the first time I noticed because it was a small team at Insomniac that it was like in alphabetical order. You know.
Mm-hmm. It is funky. Brian Paradis says, I was really impressed with the post-story content in this game. The story ends on such an emotional note after witnessing Finn's sacrifice herself, and then the credits feature a Chadwick Boseman tribute that I wasn't prepared for. And finally, the postcard mission keeps the emotions high as Miles gets to hear from his dad for the first time since his death. Patrick Henderson asking, did anyone else get choked up during those postcards? I went through it just to get the trophy and ended up really enjoying that content. I got some major Field of Dreams vibes from it. Damn these allergies, he says.
Actually, so I really like that was post-game too. It would have felt weird in the middle of the game at any point where there is, pressing plot to handle. And so it's kind of a unique thing storytelling-wise that you can just kind of, after the credits, after the drama has resolved itself, that you can really just show more of the characters without worrying about pushing the plot forward after every scene and things like that. Narratively, it's kind of really interesting thing about video games. You could just stick that in there. In this more passive worlds. I love that. I love that to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we see some of the best Miles moments in that side mission. Or like that's when I connected most emotionally to him. Like I think, the highlights for me of him as a character in this game were after the bridge when he's like, I don't know if I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then also in the postcards mission where he's like, oh, I don't really want this to end. And then also when it does end, being like, I need a break. Like, I need to take some time.
Right. Yeah. That was
or something along those lines.
Yeah. I forgot about that line. That was really good. Robert.
Yeah. You also reminded me of that. There's that like cut. It's just a cut scene where it shows him basically sleeping for like 48 hours.
Yeah. That was great.
I thought that was really fun. That was cool.
More characters sleeping after they finish the mission. That's what I want. Like God of War. That's so great. They're like, woof, boy, am I beat, or whatever Kratos says. Robert Cassidy submits a comment and says, the story conclusion was well done, but the thing that sticks with me the most after playing Miles Morales is the relationship between the characters and the city. The side quests to record audio samples around the city and collect the postcards left by Miles' dad were more enjoyable to me than the majority of the combat or stealth. Exploring the city and being properly rewarded is by far the best part of these games. And I'd like to see it incentivized more than fighting a runaway car or whatever in future entries. Yeah, I wonder how many missions could you go on before you kind of lose that impact? I feel like that postcard thing was a good length for just seeing some sights of the city, but not getting annoyed by there being 100 of these things.
Fair point, though. Like, who is truly excited to do the car stuff again when it just plays out exactly the same?
Yeah. Well, sometimes, there's that one case where you had to like deliver him, he forgot his notebook or whatever that was. That was slightly different, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Steve Bellegarde.
I forgot about that. It was the food truck, right?
Yes. Yep. Steve Bellegarde says, I didn't realize how necessary the side content was to the story until my second playthrough. My first run was 100% and I did everything I could as soon as it was available. My second New Game Plus run was story only. This changes the impact of the ending significantly. On the first run, when the people of Harlem hired to unmask Miles from the press, I was brought to tears. I had helped all these people individually, and it made perfect sense for them to declare Miles as their Spider-Man. Without this content, the ending is left feeling emotionally forced.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't do all of that stuff, are you the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
No, you hate the neighborhood.
Yeah, you want them to rot.
Yeah, you're just in it to hang out with Finn more, I think. Tommy Carver Chaplin says, I really enjoyed this game, but I think it lacks some of the more poignant and well-paced moments of the first. In one cutscene, you've infiltrated the underground, and in the next, it never really matters that you did. Haley was my favorite, by the way. Thank you, Tommy. And then Oh yeah, John Skovic says he really enjoyed the length of this game, saying, I felt like the length and scope was perfect. I have logged 25 hours in to get 100%, not quite to platinum, but it felt perfectly lengthed, especially in a busy holiday season with a million other things to play. It felt great to get in and out with no bloat. I'm glad games like this and Uncharted Lost Legacy are probably only possible to price and scope this way because they're being built off of existing engines and assets, but it would be totally fine for me to, if not every AAA game needed to be 100-hour open world.
Okay.
Yeah.
I retweeted something from Game Maker's Toolkit today that was, I'll just read it here because it's just there. Is like, so they tweeted out, a trend I'd love to see in video games is a bridge mode. You can keep your content stuffed 50-hour Assassin's Creed, but then enjoy mode that crunches it down to a slick 15-hour adventure of key quests, main story beats, and sped up RPG progression. And I feel like, in a sense, Miles Morales is sort of like that, right? And so I'd be curious to, I don't know, I feel like you all have more experience,
I'm
totally playing games, with you. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I remember Matt Burtz from Game Informer. He would always emphasize that he really wants new game minus of just like, give me just the whittled down version of what this game could be. And I would love to see it too. I'd love to see just more developers doing what Insomniac and Naughty Dog are doing here of just repurposing some assets and just having a quicker remixed game, just getting it out of the gate. 2 years, 1 year. I love that kind of stuff. I hope that people are, welcoming this with open arms, because it's interesting even hearing Brian Horton, the creative director, on the Kind of Funny spoiler cast, because he's like, do you guys like this style of game? He feels so up in the air about like, we need some feedback about whether or not this is feasible on your end, because he was like, we freaking love it. Like the team's so excited about having something that's not going to spend 4 or 5 years of their lives just slaving away on this thing.
I mean, I haven't seen anyone complain about the length, right? Because it is still a pretty expensive game.
It's $50, yeah.
Yeah. Like, but I'm totally on board. Also, I mean, not so much for you, Anna, but for me, it feels like the PlayStation 5 launch game that I'm playing, right? Mm-hmm. Like where it would have been like Perfect Dark Zero on my 360 or something like that. And to be able to get like a full Spider-Man experience and finish it in a reasonable amount of time to like move on to like, oh, what else can I do with this new console? Like just really was effective and worked. Like whatever PlayStation 6 looks like, I hope they have like it's kind of a similar like shortened version of whatever big franchise they have going on there to be available at the beginning,
Yeah, I love it. Matt Robinson wrote in saying, I think 40 would have been a better price point. But yeah, I think I finished it in like in 11 hours. You think about, something like Uncharted 2, that's like 10 hours, like there's enough content here to make it worthy, especially at $50. I love this size of game, but I understand we're always in that rare position of right now we need to be flying through so many games to try and get ready for the Game of the Year awards and stuff.
Like how much of this is just being like in-games media and like not having the time. But there are a lot of people who don't have time to play a 60-hour long game. I would also argue.
Yeah. So. Bossman, where do you stand on this thing?
Actually, so like it made me it made me realize I don't really understand like how long it takes to make a game, because I was actually super impressed by how much there was here. I expected it to be much shorter. It was like, so when for this podcast, you told me what halfway point was, right? And if I didn't know that was the halfway point, I'd be like, okay, this would probably wrap it up soon. Yeah. This is a little mini like short game. And so there was much more to do in here. And so to hear the director like be self-conscious about the amount of content in this game is so silly to me. Be proud of it. You nailed it. Like, I think unfortunately this game will probably review worse than Spider-Man because it doesn't have that new game feel to it.
Right.
Because so much of it is repeated, you're going to get hit harder in reviews. And honestly, it hits harder like in my initial reaction to it. This game would be better if I hadn't played Spider-Man 1 2 years ago. But yeah, I'm with you. I would love 1,000 more games that are just shorter like that. And to be real honest with you, though, I did feel at the beginning definitely some sameness. It's like, why does Miles have like the same like contraptions? Why does he have the same missions? Like, did they really rethink this game to be a Miles game? And then by the end, I definitely felt that they had put more effort into making it more unique to him.
Yeah. for sure. Especially, you get different abilities, just the holograms fighting alongside. There's enough weird, funky stuff here for sure. It's weird too, thinking about comparing this to Lost Legacy, which I like Lost Legacy, but it's tougher, I think, to make a shorter or a smaller scope game that still has like RPG mechanics. How do you make a short RPG upgrade path that's still rewarding? And I think this game walks that line pretty well. Sped submits another comment here saying, I wish I knew more about how the PlayStation 5 and its controller were a part of the development of this game. Specifically, when it came to the very end, it seemed like a missed opportunity to use L1 and mashing square to siphon energy from the reactors instead of using the adaptive triggers on the PlayStation 5. The struggle associated with those moments would have been better conveyed if the triggers were used to hold Miles' hand onto the reactor and they fight against you while you try to keep them pressed in to take that energy. That would have been sweet. And Anna would have been left in the cold.
Cool idea. Yep.
They're still trying to figure that controller out too, to a certain degree,
Yeah. Jeremy C. wants everybody to know that you guys might not have felt the haptic/adaptive triggers if you don't have the mic on the controller muted. Haptics and adaptive triggers.
I saw this in the YouTube comments.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing where if you don't.
So I did. I turned the mute off or on. So you have a light on an orange light on your controller now, but it is worth it. Yeah.
Yes, and then you can feel everything a little bit more. Yeah. Also, people wrote in a lot, Bosman, as you can imagine, saying that you aren't actually killing the people when you kick them off the building. It gets a little web and it sticks to the side of the building, all that fun stuff. But you knew that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, those people die.
Oh.
Yeah, they die.
I'm sorry, Miles kills people, guys. Yeah. Let's not get it twisted. Miles definitely kills people. Mm-hmm. Maybe not everyone.
My daughter, as I was playing, would consistently be like, Dad, are you killing those people? Like every few minutes, she'd be like, you killed that guy.
Good, that's a good observation.
He's fine. Yeah, don't worry about him.
Can you show her that Rhino cutscene? Maybe we can get the final verdict from your daughter, Kyle.
And then she goes into an in-depth conversation on ludonarrative dissonance.
MLA says, quick question. How many syllables are in the name Miles?
2.
1.
I think it's 1.
Look, this is
like a
what?
This is a problem that Kyle and I are all too familiar with.
Yeah.
Actually, Kyle, I don't know if this happened for you. In kindergarten, I remember we talked about this. And I was insistent it was there. 2. And my teacher was like, no, it's it's about how many times your jaw drops as you say the word. It drops once. Miles. That's 1 syllable.
What?
Yeah.
What
same with Kyle. That's just 1 jaw drop.
Okay. Well, I was wrong. I guess it's Miles. So that's 1. See, I feel like Kyle is 1, but Miles I overpronounce maybe. Yeah.
That's confusing. I don't know. I think there are a couple jaw dropping sequences in this game. Right? Up top, YouTube. Kaboink.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Hey, is this common knowledge? Oh, we lost Kyle. He already hung up.
Goodbye.
He was out after that one, man.
That's fine.
See you later.
Bosman, is this common knowledge? Please let me know. Do you know the difference between a consonant and a vowel? Do you know what separates those two?
One's A, E, I, O, U,
which Kyle are you asking?
I'm asking Kyle Bosman.
Aren't consonants just like regular letters?
But what does that mean?
Like the letter B.
Yeah, I know, but...
Is that not a consonant?
Yeah, but what separates a consonant and a vowel conceptually? Why is there a differentiation there is the question.
Okay, so I would say that like you cannot have a word without vowels, but you can totally have a word without consonants.
That's interesting.
No, you got to play more Assassin's Creed Valhalla, man.
Like, ooh, A, O. I guess you need both. I guess you definitely need both.
Yeah, it's a flavor thing.
But like vowels are the letters that just get things done, I guess.
Yeah.
And then like vowels are the nails and then consonants are the wood.
Vowels are the meat and the consonants are the bread.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's probably correct. There's probably some smarter reason. I just remember learning a couple years ago and it blew my frickin' mind that consonants are the letters you say when you pronounce them where your tongue touches the side of your mouth. Vowels are the letters you can say where your tongue doesn't touch anything. Isn't that insane?
Hold up.
Yeah.
No, I can say a lot of letters without touching my tongue to the side of my mouth.
Okay, well, that's a poor way of making... Okay, lips closing.
Yeah. Let's go through the alphabet.
B,
Okay, yeah, okay. Your lips. Okay, so it's touching. There needs to be some touching to make all consonants.
Okay.
You know?
Got it. Okay.
That's a better way to put it.
Okay. How about this? Q.
Yeah.
I think my tongue is touching the top. No, your tongue's touching the top of your mouth with that Q. I can see it.
My lips were open that whole time.
Okay, but your tongue. The tongue's a touch. Tongue's a touch on the top. That counts as a touch. Anyway, something to think about.
On the top, he shouted.
He shouted it endlessly until the Patreon was down to $0. Philly Yeatsteak submits a comment on Patreon saying, maybe... Uh-oh. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Backstage Pass, people watching us live, they're weighing in. They say letters are stupid. All right. Noted. Thank you.
That has nothing to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Philly Yeatsteak says, maybe I'm reading too much into a fun Easter egg, but one of the time capsules has a ticket stub of Miles and Finn going to a Dazzler concert. If you're unfamiliar, Dazzler is a mutant pop star in the X-Men world that can turn sound into light. So maybe mutants exist in this universe? That's a very fun idea. Do you buy it?
No.
There's no other evidence of the X-Men, unfortunately.
Yeah. But man, I do think it would be talk about fan pleasing, y'all. Imagine that if in the sequel they just lean into the X-Men universe and tie that in. Think about it, if Marvel Games has to divvy up who's doing what. They got Crystal Dynamics. You can have all the Avengers you want. Just focus on that. And then imagine if they gave Insomniac toy around with some X-Men. That would be such a clean dividing line for their big AAA projects. And fans would lose their frickin' minds. I hope it happens.
One of my favorite things in the city is the where the Wall Street Bowl is. Instead of that, it's a giant lockjaw.
Oh, really?
Statue.
Oh, is there a little girl in front of it? Being like...
No.
Dang.
Because actually, I think, do you remember the sculptor was mad about that?
No.
The sculptor of the bull was mad about the little girl.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
And so I bet that sculptor wouldn't let the bull be in this game.
That guy seems like a real prick, yeah.
And so they're like, let's just put Lockjaw on there. Let's just make fun of it.
The Game Informer had an interview or an article written by Blake Hester talking about why the Chrysler building was taken out of this game. And I guess just it changed ownership and they didn't want to give them the rights to use the Chrysler building in Miles Morales, which is very odd. But more importantly, I've really lost some sleep lately because I just look up at the ceiling and think, should I watch The Inhumans because it's on Disney Plus? Did anybody watch that?
Oh.
I'm just curious. It's such a weird outlier rejected child.
Exactly. What would it take for us to actually be interested in that series?
Now?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is what could any of us tell each other to be really make me inspired to watch that show?
I can win you over. You seem like a Marvel head, but do you know Black Bolt's full name?
No.
Okay, well, I'm about to win you over to the Inhumans.
Did you just DM it to me? It's like you're typing it. I was
Googling it because I want to get it right. This is the Inhuman Black Bolt.
I thought you were DMing me. Okay.
Well, I can't say it out loud. Black Bolt's full name, canonically, is Blackagar Boltagon. So, I don't know if that's going to...
so cool.
I don't know if that's going to win you over. But his friends call him Black Bolt. It's kind of shortening it a little bit. Amonzo7 says, I just went to the Stan Lee statue in the game and it was very emotional. Has anybody else seen this?
I didn't know it was in there.
I think it might be by the diner that he was in.
No, I saw the trophy.
Oh,
yeah, I saw the trophy before I saw the man.
There we go.
I think that is a really cool idea. I like that.
It's a stupid sentence.
One big New York monument that I don't think is in the game. And I say I don't because I went to the spot and I couldn't find it. And maybe it's in another random spot because of how they remake the map. I couldn't find the Stonewall National Monument. In Greenwich Village, which was interesting to me because, again, there are a lot of sort of themes of justice, I guess, in this game. And that's really important to the history of New York. And it's not a huge monument. It's a little park nestled between buildings. But technically, it's technically a national monument.
Kyle sent me a message on Slack. Both of them did. And they both said, I don't know what that monument is. I know because I'm a very cultured person, but you want to give us the rundown of what that is?
Yeah, it's essentially it's the location of the Stonewall riots, so it's a very important historical site for the LGBT plus community.
Okay.
It's sort of like seen as like a starting point for a lot of activism and sort of unrest, so to speak. And so like Pride, it's like a big focal point of Pride.
Gotcha.
In New York.
Oh, that's
interesting. Do you think it was like
the
a
arch?
thing?
Is it the...
No, but it's by there. So it's not, it's like, so there's Washington Square Park where the arch is. And then about like a 10, 15 minute walk, maybe, like 10-minute walk west from there, a few blocks down is that park as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Skylar Timmons, we still got some random comments here. Skylar Timmons says, going through the social media feed throughout the game is a great attention to detail. It serves no purpose to the game and can easily be avoided. Seeing the variety that Insomniac put into it gave a great replica of Twitter, and I found some of it genuinely hilarious, as if I had seen it in real life myself. Some of the highlights from the social media feed in the game were people confused about Miles swinging around with cats, someone taking a picture of the intro holo training and Miles' response to it, some dude found peanut butter cookies under his bed. I think J. Jonah Jameson followers are called brushheads. First time commenting. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Skylar. I didn't follow
this. That's a good first time comment.
Yeah.
Like people having taken blurry photos of you is kind of funny to like scroll through that and see, you know?
Yeah. They can adjust the lighting in their photos. Jake Zielsdorf says,
I gotta be honest, I didn't touch that the entire game.
I didn't either. I didn't look at it at all.
There's a trophy for scrolling through it after you beat the game. So
dumb question. Where is it?
Is that what made you do it?
It's just to the right of like the suits, gadgets, whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
God, I can't believe I missed that. That seems crazy. Jake Zielsdorf says, what do you guys think about the social feed in the game? I thought the social feed in the first game was funnier and more interesting with frequent laugh out loud moments. Overall, I thought this game somewhat lacked good joke writing compared to the first game. Whereas the first game for me was probably the funniest of the generation. Wow. Anyone else have thoughts on the overall comedy rating here? It's a different team of writers, largely, I believe.
There's someone talks about the sausage seeing how the sausage gets made, and then the next line of dialogue is someone calling someone a prick, which I was wondering if that was a joke.
What?
Talking a lot about sausage and...
I feel like that was Krieger talking about the sausage getting made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on.
No?
Am I missing something?
He says that at some point.
Is there some combination there? Is this prick like wiener?
Prick and sausage are both phallic words.
Yeah.
Get your mind out of the gutter, Hilliard. My God in heaven.
I liked when Miles was invisible and his finger got stuck to some paper. I feel like that's something that Into the Spider-Verse explored a lot and made a really funny joke out of. But
You're right.
Otherwise, in other Spider-Man media, I don't really see that often of like Spider-Man being like, I can't get this off my hand. You know? So
you mentioned it quickly. I guess we didn't talk about that whole Mission Impossible scene where he's like holding his breath and he's invisible upside down, which would be much more effective if I didn't have an exact timer in my mind of how long he could be invisible for. It's like during that cutscene, I'm like, nope, that would have been done by now. Nope. Even with the upgrade, kill it.
So let's shut it down, folks.
I think the Genki stuff, I like Genki, but I think some of those jokes didn't exactly land. Like there was that one where they're talking about like the underground being set up in different locations and one of them set up in a theater. And he's like, isn't that? And it's like, dramatic. Don't even finish it. And I was like, that line didn't really hit me.
Peter Parker's funnier because we get a lot of the silly humor through him, like the Pigeons quest he has, right? Like there's all his Peter Parker jokes related to that. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's just a little goofier in that sense.
Yeah. Musky Goron says, so who else got the dialogue with Genki after finishing the campaign about Speed Nonagon? The entire campaign, I thought it was just a game they were excited to play, but it turns out that Genki and possibly Miles have been developing this game the whole time. Speed Nonagon better be playable in Spider-Man 2. Yeah, they talk about it at the end, and they're like, we built up a mobile game empire. So they emphasize that it is mobile, so it does seem very Super Hexagon inspired. I'd love to know the exact connection there, and if they like talk to the Super Hexagon folks about that. Did we lose Bossman?
Did we?
I don't know.
It's gone forever. Oh, for a second I thought we lost Kyle because they're
I know, yeah, the window jumped around.
Kyle.
Sorry. I know. Well, Boston's not here.
Have you had enough of that, Kyle? Of the confusion over the Kyles?
You know, it's kind of fitting that we have two Kyles because they're two Spider-Mans. Like, do you two feel that tension? You know, like, oh, I'm the real guy. Like, no, I'm the new guy.
One of them's definitely funnier.
Yep. One of them's a little more boyish.
Yeah, one of you exclusively gets called Young Kyle.
Other Kyle.
Spencer Protein says, I know it was discussed in part 1 of the Deepest Dive, but I wanted to reiterate how extremely refreshing it was to play through the game with almost zero main characters that were white. Except for the douchebags, I guess, J. Jonah Jameson and Simon Krieger. That is true. Honestly, can you think of any other games that feature an exclusively person of color cast? The only one that comes to mind is San Andreas. That one.
Games that feature largely casts of color. Like more recently, Raji came out.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Spiritfarer has a protagonist that's a person of color. Mutation. I could go on, but for AAAs, I can't think of any.
Disappointingly rare.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like the video game industry was like tricked into doing it. You know what I mean? Like you had to use someone else's IP to have, you know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like a AAA game with a black protagonist. You know, it's like you don't really see that too often either way. So it's like, yeah, it's almost I'm happy for it, right? Like it's a good thing, but it's almost like it was really Marvel who lay the groundwork for that. But it is very rare and it is interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm trying to think just in general. I mean, Mafia 3 back in 2016, that was a big swing on having biracial technically, but yeah. That's a very good way of putting it, that like, well, we can't deny this universe that was built up by somebody else, and so let's roll with it. But I'm glad they leaned into it as much as they did. Oh yes, Kyle.
I don't mean to. I do feel like Insomniac probably didn't even think about it, right? Like it's just like a good character is just a very natural sequel. Like I'm positive it wasn't just like we should make a game with a black protagonist. Like we also have you know what I mean? Like I feel like I don't mean to like discredit anything there. Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Charlie Hunter says, I noticed in both the Roxxon facility and the Science Museum flashback that Finn's hair is insanely detailed. It's the best video game hair I've ever seen in my life. I took a photo in photo mode at the museum, and you can see individual hair swooping around her scalp and ears, and her ponytail has super detailed curls and just the slightest movement to it, but not flying all over the place like Lara Croft's hair in the recent Tomb Raiders. Not tress effects. I guess I didn't notice that, but I trust you that it's great.
I noticed that. I mean, not to that detail, I didn't like zoom in, but that's something I'm always interested in, because when when there's the announcement trailer for oh my gosh, Beyond Good and Evil. I don't know why.
What?
That's very different. Beyond Good and Evil. People were like, oh, the hair. And I think about this a lot because like, obviously I haven't seen very many games with like curly hair. And I was really impressed by how they did Finn's character, and even like little details about like how she largely wears it up, because like, yeah, like if you have hair like that, you're going to wear it up or you're going to wear it braided, like, because it's kind of like pain to deal with,
right?
Especially if you're the tinkerer.
When you're the tinkerer.
That all over the place.
Get in the way of all that tinkering.
I can't tinker with this here. Joseph Stanicher says, so I noticed this last time, but I thought I'd cut a plot hole with Miles's mom running for city council after Christmas, since elections should be on November 3rd. Then I went on Ballotpedia and found that New York City has special elections for local roles all the time, and J. Jonah Jameson confirmed it was a special election in one of his segments. So the joke's on me.
Phew.
You can't outsmart them, Joseph Stanicher. But
that was a close one.
I know, really close. These two comments are my favorite. I did not notice this, but Yarrow writes in saying, I liked how the board at home for Rio's campaign fundraising goes up as the story progresses, with it finally reaching the goal after beating the story. That's excellent.
Very cool. I did not notice that at all.
And this is the one that kills me. Jake Zielsdorf says, did you notice that Miles's phone battery depletes as you go throughout the game, and it ends at 1% battery?
I did notice that.
A man after my own heart. Swinging around 1% battery.
What if Yankee calls?
Harrison Holt McHale says, I want to shout out fidelity mode for the second Rhino boss fight, as well as the game as a whole for the from the Science Center onwards, those missions are a ray tracing showpiece, and I thoroughly recommend replaying them with it turned on, with the fidelity mode turned on, just to see some beautiful lighting. I bet that does look great.
When you're talking about technical issues, I forget the name of the reformatable suit. Does make the PS5 chug because it's doing so much ray tracing all over your body.
Oh,
that
really?
I definitely noticed. Like, I wanted to turn it on to see that thing reflect, and then it was just like having a really hard time. And I'm like, okay, buddy, I'll go back. Don't ray trace this. It's fine.
Yeah. So were you in ray tracing is just in fidelity mode? Is that right?
Yeah.
So were you playing on fidelity then for the second half?
No, just for the suit. I was like, I got to see how reflective this is.
Yeah, that does seem cool. That's it, everybody, for comments. We hit it all. Are there any notes or beats we haven't hit from you all for thoughts on the second half?
I made a joke a few months ago about like the next generation means no more squeeze throughs, which is like a character walking through a hallway slowly so that loading can happen. And there was a moment in Spider-Man where Miles is like getting ready to go through a squeeze through, and I was like, here we go. We're not in the next gen. We didn't make it. But then he does a really cool animation where he just like zips through it really quick. It's when him and Finn are like going around under Roxxon or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, we did it, man. PlayStation 5. No more squeeze throughs.
Unless you're playing on the PlayStation 4. Then enjoy the next generation.
Did he squeeze through at that point, Anna?
Well, I'm trying to remember that exact part. What part is it? Like,
it's like when you're underneath the grates and like you're following Finn around and you guys are having a conversation. There's just one moment where he has to like push through, and he does a little sideways like flip to get through it really quickly. And I thought it was going to be like a squeeze through loading screen, but it was not.
We walked. I'm
sure
I played,
it's the same.
Finn and I walked slowly through it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure it wasn't.
I'm sure there was a
version.
loading thing.
Let's see. My odds and ends.
I guess I'd be curious.
Please, sir.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Okay, I just like generally I want to know like this panel, like if you like this game, how you like this game in comparison to Spider-Man 1.
Well, I'll bow out because I didn't play Spider-Man 1.
That's like,
and so this was an incredibly fun experience for me. Because I got to experience the novelty for the most part, for the first time.
How much time did you spend just like discovering the city and things?
A while, because like I, not for like a long time, but lived in New York for a bit. So like the moment, not after the Rhino battle, I spent a significant amount of time like looking for buildings, like my old office building, where I live, stuff like that. And so like a while doing that. And then also, I feel like I might go back and in a fun suit look around some more as well, do some searching, like if there are any highlights. But I do think that all the various like kind of fetchy things in the game brought me to all the important places. So I feel pretty confident that I've seen everything.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's tough. I like the scope of this just because I'm not a big open world guy. And so anything that can kind of rein that in, I really appreciate. I really enjoyed this game. I definitely enjoyed 2018 more. I think the writing was stronger in 2018. I think I was more invested, even though I think Miles is a cool character to experiment with and there are interesting beats. I think I was much more emotionally engaged throughout the storyline for 2018. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like, I like Miles's animation a lot more. I like fighting as Miles more, I think. But like, just like there's a lot of standout moments. Like the scene where Peter and Mary Jane are kind of getting back together in the first game, but he has to go off and be Spider-Man. And like he changes clothes in her kitchen. Yeah. And there's that line where she's just like, did you just leave your clothes like on the floor of my kitchen? And he's just like, I gotta go be Spider-Man. Like there wasn't like, there wasn't anything quite like those sort of like singular kind of standout jokes or moments for me. But like I really like Miles and I like Finn a lot and I like how it ended. But the novelty of playing Spider-Man 1 for the first time is kind of undeniable. There's also sort of like, I went to the studio to check it out. So like I was kind of like looking at it from maybe a little bit different perspective, and But yeah, I mean, that's not to diminish this game. This really feels more like an extension of Spider-Man 1 than a sequel, even a half sequel to me. So it's a weird to compare.
I get that.
Them, you know,
it's silly to boil it down this way, just to be like, I prefer the gameplay from this game and the story and writing from the first one. It would be my oversimplification.
Yeah.
What about you, Kyle?
I think I like overall. I think I like the story in this one better in just how tight it is and how like intimate it is. It doesn't introduce a lot of side characters and doesn't give us too many villains to worry about and things. And so actually I like how tight this game is narratively a lot. And I don't know. I like the story it has to tell and about the character it has to tell. But obviously, it's kind of as you say. It's like, why say one is better than the other when they're just like two excellent parts of the same whole?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people are still going to be so excited for when the next Spider-Man comes out, 22 or whatever. And like, God, that final still in this game does lean me again towards thinking it'll be co-op. I know we don't have to get into this debate again, but like that final shot is the two Spider-Men on screen, like da-da-da-da, and that freeze frame with those two. It seems like it's very in your face about two Spider-Men at the same time. Please get ready. So I'd be surprised if it wasn't that, but last quick note is I really like the guards in this game when you're fighting and they say, "Get Peter Pan down here." Like, did you guys hear that one? Like, if you're just in the air too much, they call you Peter Pan, which the first time it happened, it was that weird moment of like, how do they know my name? Oh wait, no, never mind. I'm not Peter Parker, and it's not the full name, but it's so weird that.
How do they know that's not my name? Is that what you said?
I guess that makes more sense, yeah. It's just that weird beat of like, oh yeah, Peter Pan is close to Peter Parker. That's weird.
You know what? And calling someone Peter Pan does feel like an insult.
I think because it's like, yeah, you're the
what
girl.
You want, Peter Pan?
Yep, a girl could play you on stage is kind of like that Brooklyn, hey, you're the girl theatrically,
Grow up, Peter Pan. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that angle too.
You know what one actually I love is when Miles says, sleep time, bro. Just saying bro like that to me, like that's exactly what I would say to this man. And so to hear a video game character say the words that I would want.
Oh, we also didn't comment
just
on
a disdainful bro.
That's excellent. I love I think it's just, if you're in stealth mode, have the camouflage on, and when you sneak up behind and that animation where if he taps on their shoulder and then they turn around and then he pops them real quick. Like that's such a fun animation to see over and over again. Also, I guess this is one of those things. This is why I'm fascinated by game clubs and the deepest dives, because even with all these hours of conversation, we didn't talk about the thing that you do so much in this game, which is gameplay 101 of just, there's an awful lot of this game where you're just following cables around and activating those generators. It is like that weird moment of like, this is the Spider-Man fantasy. It's just following yellow lines through the building to follow it, but you got to have something. You got to have your 30 seconds of fun or whatever. And I guess in this game, it's following yellow cables. That's it, everybody.
The credit of the cables.
Yeah.
They're never along the same line. They're always above or beneath you, which I think is a really fun thing to do as Spider-Man is go up or go down.
That is true.
I don't mind it. Okay. I don't mind it.
Yeah, it was pretty breezy. But did you guys have that weird moment too of going from this game to other games and it was just jarring? Like, God, Assassin's Creed Valhalla just feels like this rickety, slow mess. Or going back to Yakuza and I'm like, oh my God, running around a city like a schlub.
I went to Call of Duty after this.
Ooh, okay. So smooth?
You go, Kyle.
Oh, sorry. No, just murderous. It was so weird for me to just be killing people immediately, just shooting humans. It was really hard for me to flop over from, being a good boy like Miles to just killing people.
Yep, not caring if people are begging for life as you run by them. Yeah, that is an abrupt transition.
Yeah, yeah, I think Anna and I we're in the age of calamity. I think we live there now.
Fast enough for me. I'm killing thousands of goblins,
Yeah, you get to slide on the shield. That's a quick button press away in that one. So yeah, it makes sense. Great. Thank you as always to everybody that supports the Deepest Dive format in the past and the future. If you support us on Patreon, you can unlock the podcast versions of, our Chrono Trigger discussion, Super Mario 64, the Final Fantasy VII Remake one is my favorite. Anna was on a great one for Animal Crossing. Last of Us Part 2 was a really interesting one to unpack as we went along. Halo 1, We did The Thing for the first cross-media deepest dive. That was an interesting one for sure. But thanks to everybody that supports us on Patreon and everybody that submitted a comment for us to read. We appreciate you all playing along. We had a lot of fun going through all that stuff. The MinnMax community in the Discord wanted to mention that this Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, they're going to be watching Into the Spider-Verse. So it's going to be a big group watch party. So if you want to join that, you can jump into that MinnMax Discord, which you get access to if you support us at any tier on Patreon. And jump in and have some fun, talk about Miles Morales. Kyle Bossman.
That's really cool they do that.
Oh my God. I'll send you a link if you want to jump into the Discord. I know you're probably, I don't know. I think
I'm a lurker. I'm like the person who's just lurking. I would never communicate with other people online.
The Prowler. I understand. But yeah, that community is the sweetest.
Yes.
And we have like a whole channel dedicated to Better Quest, our show about getting better, and like seeing the stories and the discussions in there, like sharing self-help books. It is the most heartwarming community in the world. It's really, it's a very friendly Miles Morales feel in that Discord. But I saw a fair number of comments just talking about how nice it was to hear you on a podcast format again, Kyle. So thanks for being here, man.
Oh, yeah. It's been fun. Yeah, it's been really, really fun to do this. I do feel bad, like, I guess because it's this more digital era, like how much we interrupt each other. Like, that's hard for me to get used to, of course.
I feel like
but yeah, this has been really fun for me, honestly.
I feel like you're on a bigger delay than other folks. Is that possible?
It seems so. It seems like I'm always the bad guy this entire podcast. It seems like I'm very rude and like shouting over everyone.
I think there's just somehow a longer delay for you. I don't know if that breaks the space-time continuum, but it seems to be something funky, but it's natural.
Well, me and Anna, we're like within 30 miles of each other. Boston's in North Carolina.
That is true. If it makes you feel any better, Kyle, I take notes of every... No, you go first, and I trim that crap out so people barely even know what you're talking about.
That makes me feel way better, but all the effort that you put into it is insane.
Oh, please. Please, it's nothing. I'm a video editor. It's what I do.
Okay, all right.
Kyle, do you miss podcasting? I know streaming is, you rambling on out for hours and hours and hours, but the podcast format, do you miss it?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's nice to, and I guess you can hear me do it a few times in like this thing. I like to like ask other people for their opinions on things that I'm not sure how I feel about,
Right.
And so when you're streaming, you can talk to your audience for sure. But most of the time you're just rambling unchallenged and you can say anything you feel like without anybody saying like, no, actually that's stupid, Kyle. And so, yeah, I totally miss podcasting from time to time.
Yeah. Do you find it uncomfortable to listen to Easy Ally stuff or watch Easy Ally stuff? Or do you ever go back and check out what they're doing over there?
Great question. Wow, what a personal question too. It's like okay, so I'll be very honest with you, is I almost like don't really listen to any video game podcasts at this point anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing. Once I started doing it, I stopped doing it. I stopped listening once I started doing podcasts, and I haven't gotten back in the habit. I'll watch streams sometimes though. I'll watch them stream.
Okay. Nice ways to check in and
say,
they're having fun.
Voices, I guess.
Yeah. It's nice. It's weirdly emotional. Like Kyle and I had that with leaving Game Informer. Like I was really nervous about, I don't know if I can listen to the Game Informer show podcast, but then it's like, oh no, it's still nice to listen to. You can get back into that groove after just like that little bit of discomfort. Or even like, I don't know if you saw this, Kyle Hilliard, but Game Informer posted a rapid fire interview about Immortals Phoenix Rising, which they haven't done since, Leo and I both left. And so it's like, oh my God, I can't believe, I'm happy they're doing that format moving forward. That it's not just sitting in a dustbin somewhere, but then watching it,
it was
I'll
have to go check that out. That one passed me by for sure.
Yeah, it is an uncomfortable feeling. Just like, God,
I didn't know that was your thing.
Yeah, we started it back with No Man's Sky. Was the first one we did that for. It was super fun, and like I missed that format so much. Like it was just the best. We got to do it with like,
it's such a good format.
It's the best. Like the time that I talk about it too much, but when we got to do one with Miyamoto, and it was literally us in the hotel, like, okay, Nintendo PR approved it. You can now write hundreds of questions for Miyamoto. What do you want to ask? And it's like, holy God, this is just the greatest privilege in the world. So, but yes, check out Game Informer's stuff, I guess, is how we want to end this deepest dive.
That one meant a lot to me, actually, the Miyamoto one.
Oh, really?
If you ask him what his favorite Japanese word is?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's next to Enuma, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and they had different words.
He says Dokuso is my favorite Japanese word. I loved it.
Do you remember what that is? I don't remember what it translates to.
So it's to be unique, and it was the same one for the first Nintendo Direct. Iwata has the word Dokuso behind him.
Oh, wow.
And he explains it then. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So like it made that connection to me and like how important that word is to both of these gentlemen. You know what I mean? And so like that like hit me. And it was a rapid fire into it. You know what I mean? Like you move on immediately in this interview. But like when I'm watching this, he goes, "It's Doku." So I'm like, oh! It's like it hit me really hard.
Oh, good. I'm glad you watched that. That's sweet. Yeah. And of course, check out Easy Ally stuff. Go check them out on Patreon or check out their podcast, their shows. They're cranking out a lot of good stuff over there. So please give them some support. Any other plugs you want to throw out there? Bossman, you want to throw out your Twitch channel again?
Sure. Twitch.tv/Kyle Bossman. The Game Awards are December 10th. Check those out.
Ooh, pre-show?
With me in it? No.
Oh. Okay. But are you just writing on there again?
Okay. I'm a consultant on the Game Awards. That's my official title, is I just consult.
Without spoiling anything, what does that mean? Can you give us an example of you consulting or guiding this year?
Yeah. Also, what's the game of the year?
Yeah, right.
Okay. That's undecided as of yet, but it is Final Fantasy VII Remake, obviously.
Fantastic. So happy to hear it.
So I guess I don't obviously like super NDA'd, but it's like, hey, how would we make this guest work with this segment? Is this stupid? Is there a way to make this, nice? And then some writing. I'll do some writing for like, the guests and people who have to like present something.
Right.
And it's kind of like writing for like a late night talk show where you write lots of jokes. It's like you write lots of different ideas for the presentation, and then like they'll pick one, and so you get used to them just getting shot down. And that's mostly what I do, is write the ones that get shot down. But I think it's still important to have those around.
Yeah, just give them options. That's awesome. That's a good gig, man. Yeah. It's amazing you've been able to hold on to that for so long here. So congratulations.
What is that supposed to mean?
No,
it's amazing you can hold on to that.
Well, that's a great place to end the episode.
Ben, do you think I'm going to get fired? Is it inevitable that I get fired?
I didn't want to say. I just make room for new blood. No, it's nice that even with you kind of, I don't know, out on your big journey over there in the Carolinas, that's still, it's like, okay, this guy's glued in enough in the game industry that he's the guy we need to go to write some dialogue for Elf or whatever the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get it.
Do you know I actually got to do some pitches for Elf?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some of my Elf jokes got in. I was so excited.
Got in that puppet's mouth. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's fun, man. Like to have that moment of going and, okay, I guess I got to go watch some Elf clips and trying to remember what this guy's voice is like to try and make a line that would fit.
I did a lot of, and I went to his wiki and I did watch a bunch of videos. A bunch of stuff I pitched did not get in, but some of my Elf pitches got in. I was so stoked. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. We should probably wrap this up. Thanks again to everybody that submitted a comment for us to read on the Deepest Dive. We appreciate it. We'll be back with a new game club in the future. We're leaning towards one game, maybe the biggest game to be released yet this year, but we're still a little bit up in the air. So let us know what you would like for the Deepest Dive moving forward, and maybe we can tackle it. Until next time, bye everybody. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The Deepest Dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.